man left standing.
Immediately Baron. They're going to deny the Blast Cone. They're going to go for the Baron. You no longer have the massive poke potential from the Zoe. You have Yagao playing defense, and Clearlove has just now spawned.
It's Mako
30
and
seconds
Ray.
to run.
That's the concussive blows onto Yagao. He's sidestepping as best he can, but look at that. Lumao's there with the save. Knockup is ready over the wall. Ray, is he going to look to go in? He's got the fear beyond death, but the Baron is picked up. And JD Gaming, 10 kills to 1, are dissecting Edward Gaming.
And we got over that 30-minute hump. We got over the Baron hurdle. JD Gaming managed to figure it out. They couldn't have the right vision. They couldn't break Edward Gaming in the force between Zoe and just all of her mobility, so they take it to the lane phase. They find Ray overextended. He can't be on that side of the map. He doesn't control it, and they force the fight with all of the mobility. The Realm Warp, the Abyssal Voyage, find the crucial picks, and crack EDG open with their gold lead.
Moving so protectively around their carries in these fights. I was about to say doing everything they can to keep Loken and Yagao safe, but Loken was the really only one who needed protection because Yagao seems to be a front line for JD Gaming with these Realm Warps chasing forwards, showing no fear against the winningest team in the history of the LPL. He's got nameplates turned off.
And I personally just love how Rise has made this meteoric rise back into the LPL. We have great Rise players, but ultimately as Banshee Veil has come back into the itemization, and it's just so much easier to go into now, which it's been like that for a while, he just becomes so tanky. There's nothing you can do against him, and his damage output is still absurd. So if you got it, play it, and they got it.
Now we got to push onto 2 inhibitor turrets. Yagao is finishing off the top inhibitor turret, and he's still got Realm Warp. No one from EDG is defending this, and they're still losing ground mid. JD, once again, they find an opening, and they are tearing this map open. The top inhibitor is down, and Yagao is pushing it all the way to the Nexus turrets to force EDG back. And even Zoom is finishing it off. Could we have a triple inhib in one Baron from JD Gaming?
Edward Gaming, they have run out of time. Kaisa needs to be online right now. You're not going to get the 4th item. Where do you draw the line in the sand? Because they are being dissected.
Now we've got the teleport back out from Yagao. Banshee's Veil stalls it, but Chains of Corruption. Piercing arrow, Mako's in the front. He goes down, the first to fall. Could this be the game 1 for EDG? As Split is forcing them back into the base. And already the observers are popping us out, but there's still a fight onto the fountain, but they turn onto the Nexus. JD Gaming, they have studied the history books, and they're going to learn from their mistakes in the past, taking game 1 over EDG.
A new chapter possibly starting. We're still very early on in the series, but it feels like JD Gaming are just itching to turn that page, and you can see it written on Ray's face. The monument of the LPL, Edward Gaming, may come crashing down today. They looked all out of sorts in game number 1.
JD Gaming playing EDG's style against them and pulling them apart piece by piece. They still showed us that same characteristic weakness during the mid-game, but it was so much more intelligent about how they were willing to back away and retreat from fights. This is the same lesson we saw them learn against FPX just 2 days ago, and they've shown that in 2 days they can turn around that quickly and take that same style of play against Edward Gaming. I mean, we talk about meteoric rises, but this is something else.
And JDG have been the baby Edward Gaming, but no more. They are now about to overcome EDG. They played their style better than them. Every time Edward Gaming tried to find some sort of skirmish or fight, JD Gaming read them like a book. Had the pocket play, had the plan, executed it brilliantly, and put Edward Gaming into the ground.
And so many times we ask the questions, when will the dynasty fall? When will the monarchy change hands to someone new? Well, JD Gaming with a victory here, they could be showing us that that day might have finally arrived.
Edward Gaming have only ever been knocked out of playoffs twice.
Oof, it very well could happen that JD Gaming do that once again. But now to break down that Game 1 win, let's hear from our analysts.
All right. JD on the field, JD on the scoreboard, 1-0. That's what I'm talking about, Raz.
That was real fun. That was a good one. Now, it was good just because one of the first things we said was that, you know, bottom lane, iBoy and Mako should be able to take that lane 2v2 kill for Loken and Lumao. So it already feels like just based off the laning phase alone, the laners that were not impacted by the level 1, Loken doing well for himself right out the get-go.
Yeah, that was the big thing. It was just like everything that we were looking towards the bottom lane. We're also looking towards the top side, which did get impacted by that level 1 in the jungle skirmish right there. And that ripple effect right here, the kill onto Ray, also the kill onto Clid, spiraled the game.
So right off the get-go, you would say that fighting against Sion is suicidal in level 1 because he started Q and he could try for it once again. But EDG were confident that with Scout coming in first, they should be able to take it. The only issue is that, of course, Yagao is going to follow you. So if the fight goes long enough and you don't have another member from the bottom side of the map joining in, it should be, you know, the team Jingdong Gaming being able to take out completely after that level 1. And that level 1 had actually a larger impact.
It did, yeah. It absolutely did.
The one member that didn't die, that actually flashed over the wall in that screen, was the one who got impacted the most. No flash, had to go back to base really early on. Rai stayed in lane, and guess who got hit by the CS margin? So Scout got super impacted, and he lost lane based off that alone.
He did. He had 8 farms to 33
yes.
coming out of that laning phase, getting to about the 5-minute mark, and that was a massive differential. Top lane, again, though, I feel like this is another lane where we see Urgot getting picked, and then you don't play towards top side if you have the Urgot. And then it's actually the opposing team who continuously just hits the top lane over and over and over again and beats down the Urgot after that level 1 as well.
Yes, and here's the thing about this, is that this is a very intelligent composition coming out of JD, because not only was he going up against a tougher lane in the Sion.
Yeah.
Sion is a tank top laner, sure, but he's a laner as well. And the fact that his Q just outranges a lot of the spells and auto attacks that Urgot has gives him a shot to just deny all the trades that he gives you. But then also one thing that adds on to that is the jungle pressure coming in. Graves is a pick that we haven't seen in a very long time, and he's coming back into it because the Electrocute junglers are just all nerfed. Electrocute got changed, and it's better debatably for a lot of the laners, but for junglers, outright nerf, just because that means that you don't get the brute force damage for the skirmishes that you actually want to look for. Graves here being picked up. Dark Harvest has actually been something that's been spreading out for a lot of junglers, including in Italy as well. So you keep the early damage burst that you get from comparable to Electrocute, and actually makes it difficult now for Urgot. Because Urgot 8.16 is thinking, I'm dealing with a lot of tanks.
Yeah.
But not only are you dealing with the DPS that you have with the Graves that has the early game advantage, but now losing out in the laning phase, not just because of level 1, but to the laner of Sion.
Yeah, to dig deeper on that point, because Urgot comes into the meta and it's just like fantastic. No burst to be seen, no Electrocute, all the damage is being lowered, but then instantly you see the Graves come out in this draft and it's like, all right, top lane, you be tank, I'll be DPS. And you saw that in the 2 versus 1. They were able to actually chunk down the Urgot very quickly before you could even make it back to his tower. So really like the adaptation coming in here on the adaptation that was Urgot coming into the playoffs in the first place.
And just as a little salt on the wound is that Tom Kench is going to be able to save out potentially anybody that is in range of execution. So it's just real difficult for the Urgot that already had a poor laning phase to find impact later on in the game.
Yeah, and then we actually take it to the team fights themselves. And speaking of that, Tam Kench, he's like, you want to get past me, buddy? Not going to happen. Initially, this looks very good for Ray. It's like, I'm going to buy some time, EG, get the class. Massive fissure coming out of Brom as well. But look at Scout. He just can't even get access into this fight.
And that's the issue here, is that there are so many points of DPS for JD, even though Loken is not actually outputting damage because of the slow based off that fissure, correct? And that Scout's going to be able to zone him. You don't need your AD carry. You have a secondary carry in the Graves. And you have the output that Rise is putting out there. So just based off of those two alone, there's no way that a team fight is going to work out for EDG in that way.
Now, Yagao's going to take our man of the match in this one, so congratulations to him in the mid lane. We were talking about whether it was going to be him or it's going to be the year of the Scout. Which one, Rookie or Scout? It's going to be
no Scout found.
No Scout found. It's all going to be Yagao, all going to be on this Rise play. He dominated the laning phase coming out of that jungle fight at level 1 and then just continued to blast everybody across the map.
So that's a +1 to already 7 MVPs that he's had at this split. He's a very strong mid laner for just in the mid lane pool. And just like Dom said, just like Frost said, took Scout's Rise away from him, took the style away from EDG, saying that we have the semi-global composition, and then forced in EDG to play out lanes that they weren't winning out. So if this is the strategy they're going for, props to Coach Home.
Yeah, and surprisingly, what was for me, it was the bottom lane, the fact that Loken also got ahead. You saw that 40% chunk onto that Zoe and took him out at the end of the game. It's like every lane's going well right now for JD. We'll see if they can keep it. We're going to take a short break. When we get back, we'll be here for game number 2.
相信这支年轻气盛的京东，相信过程。
Hello and welcome back to the LPL playoffs, and we are on match point right now. RNG have stepped off their throne and they're looking to beat someone down, and by someone I mean TOP, because that last game, there was barely any last game. It was all over out of that laning phase. Now, question coming into this one is TOP, do you have anything left? And if you do, what does it look like?
Ooh. So for me, I think they need to take away something that RNG has been running through the entire series. I feel like RNG after Asian Games has been revolving their entire ban pick phase after the linchpin of Gragas. You know, the Kindred goes well with it. It's a good protection, and we've seen the basic structure of the ban pick be one side take the Braum and the other side take the Gragas for the playmaking potential.
Yep.
Now, I actually think you can disrupt RNG quite heavily if you do take that away and try to take away some of their early aggressive jungle picks as well.
Yeah. And one thing I think TOP has been failing on is having control through mid lane and playing through mid lane this series. They haven't had that problem throughout the regular season, and throughout the last series, it's actually been Corrin that's been excelling, and you've been able to free him. It hasn't been happening here. And one of the major reasons or problems coming out of it is that TOP would play through top lane, and they would get that advantage. But a counter gank would come through from MLXG later on and would upset the advantage that you would get. RNG would go through bottom lane in this game. They'd essentially rescue the deficit that Uzi had initially. And so now you're having problems where you would get leads, but because RNG is recommitting back to the fight, they would have more members because their mid laner is able to come through mode first. Xiaohu has more control. That's what they need to be able to answer first. Deal with Xiaohu, free Corrin, and move as a squad.
Yeah, now TOP have selected the blue side, not going to be subbing anyone in, so no one trick. Urgot coming into the top lane, no lies into the roster. Yeah, he's going to be the bench warmer on this one, but yeah, RNG, they're going to be looking towards Uzi as the big carry. On the opposite side, you're right, I want to see the big showdown. I want to see Korn, who's gotten all the resources out from TOP, face down Uzi in the bottom lane, put him on an assassin, and just hope for the best at this point.
You might not see Galio coming out of this game. Two of the last games were decided essentially by the Galio pick, denying a lot of the fights if you lose out in your early game. So I would expect TOP perhaps to ban out Galio and force perhaps a Irelia versus LeBlanc matchup. I think Corrin played super well on the LeBlanc last series. Even though they didn't win that game, he was the outstanding performer.
Yeah, but we're talking about so many bans that TOP have to think about. The Kaisa, the Rise, I don't think those are going anywhere. You add the Aatrox as well, and then the Galio. Like they don't have enough bans to actually fix the situation. So in that scenario, and you're going blind pick, you have to pick your strongest champions for you. And I actually agree with you. If Corrin is going to go out, I want to see him go out in a blaze of glory. He did really well with the LeBlanc against Alessandro last time that he played against Xiaohu, and on a champion that can make, that can make picks on his own. I really want to see them focus with a strong jungler pick. I know that XX has had trouble. He's went for something that's more sustainable on the Sejuani, but he really needs to step it up and play a high-risk jungler.
Maybe the Camille, go back onto the Camille pick. I know they had problems in game one, but my major issue, and I'm talking about Corrin picking up the LeBlanc, is that TOPL losing focus for one specific lane that they can dogpile on. It happened in game two where they can go towards the Camille on the top side of the map, and maybe that's something you go back to, but with how quickly RNG is moving bottom lane, it's a game of speed right now. So I feel like trying to hit mid lane first, get back on towards the Camille, give Corrin that LeBlanc. I know sometimes it's too easy to slap that bandit and say pick and ban, but right now they're getting outskilled on the map as a team. Individually, I think that would be a good ban.
Yeah, that's the big point, is because they're being outskilled in the game itself. So coming out of the draft, it's like, okay, great, either we won it or we went even, but we need the ability to be able to play up. If you just have like a tank in the mid lane or something that is like a control mage, and it's like, great, we can perform well, get out of the laning phase, get towards the mid game, but unless you actually facilitate Korn to make these big plays, that's going to be the difference maker. We're going to send it over to our casters to get us into potentially our final game of the evening.
Thank you very much, guys, and we're here raising our koalas, getting ready for Champion Select of Game 4, where RNG are currently at match point. TOP looked strong in Games 1 and 2, but Game 3 there were no match for the full force of RNG, and already the bans have come through for the first phase. Kali, Alistar, and Swain, the same three bans that have come out the entire series for RNG.
Yes.
Rakan, Rise, and Kai'Sa banned up by TOP. This time, though, they take Aatrox and give away Uzi's Champion of Varus.
Yeah, so this time they pick the Aatrox in the top lane. Something that they would have acknowledged after the last game is that the Aatrox was not being banned by RNG on the red side at all.
So they know that they'll get that for themselves, and they'll pick the Vladimir once again with it, not against it. So they have the capabilities of flexing that between mid and top lane as they desire. Now, they've revealed their solo lane, as you would have to assume. Moving through the rest of this draft, we'll have to see how this rounds out, because they have just gone quick.
Very quick drafts coming out from TOP. They know exactly what they want. Vladimir as well as Camille were locked in as their final picks for the first draft phase. Whereas for RNG, we have the Gragas being picked up very early again. That's probably going to be Ming's support of choice, but it can be cast as champion.
So
Let Me can take it to the top lane.
There's a couple of things that need to be considered here for TOP moving into the second ban phase. Galio is a big pick. If they want it, they have to kind of be very cautious of the fact that Xiaohu could then pick it first. They are on red side RNG, so they get the first priority of their mid lane pick if that's what they're going to do. As it stands, I agree with what the analyst desk said. Champions like Galio need to be considered right now for TOP, and they've got the potential of the combo. But man, that's such a big risk to leave it open.
It is, but let's see how they play this one out. For RNG, it's not going to be Gragas support again. It's going to be Tahm Kench picked up in the bottom lane. A few teams have shied away from the champion now that 8.16 has hit his Devour quite heavily. He can no longer save allies as frequently. It does get half of its cooldown when you use it against an enemy, so you can be more offensive in the bottom lane with the champion.
I mean, it hits him hard, but it doesn't seem to mean all that much for Tahm Kench in competitive. The first Devour is all that matters in the end, and that's what they're after, so they'll be able to save Uzi once, and that's the big deal. Gragas, of course, now not going to be in the support role for Ming, but still available in the composition, playing directly into RNG's wheelhouse. Their strength since Asia Games, having that engage source that can also double up as disengage to empower their AD as they so need.
Final bans coming here, though, Rusty, as Cho'Gath and Ornn get taken away from Let Me once again. TOP are constantly banning out his tanks to the top lane.
He's got it too.
But he's got it. He's ready to go. The Crab Man is back. Let Me takes him into the top lane.
We get to see what TOP will pick in response to this one. You know that it's an Aatrox or a Vladimir in that lane, most likely, so that's where we'll have to reveal the flex, even the potential of Taric here currently perhaps into that Urgot. Now, if you're wondering why Urgot's picked, just think of him as AD Rumble, and that's all you really need to know.
But it's a curious time for Urgot to be picked up a little bit more, and that's a Jax being thrown up against it. Is it going to be a Jax thrown up against it? Is it going to be Jax in the jungle?
Is that a Vladimir bottom?
Who knows where any of these picks are going for TOP? They're throwing the kitchen sink and more at RNG.
We'll have to wait till they finish the draft. I assume it'll be a support for Cat. He was looking at the Zillion, he's looking at the Fiddlesticks now.
The Zillion champions, but Fiddlesticks is the one that he goes for.
So Fiddlesticks, an ex-champion in the bottom lane. We've seen Jax bottom, we've seen Vladimir bottom. I'm sure Aatrox could do it if he wants. And we know that Chelchel was the innovator of the majors. A couple of our bot laners have taken to it very quickly. Chelchel was one of those.
This is where we go, 3D chess. We put Fiddlesticks in the jungle, Camille supports with Jax.
If you like losing 3D chess, I think that's a very viable option.
Never played. Too difficult. But Syndra gets locked in for RNG as Xiaohu's mid lane pick of choice. Now we get to see where TOP are putting their champions. It makes sense that it would be Vladimir as the bottom lane pick.
Yeah, Vladimir's the most likely one to be down in that lane. Aatrox in the mid lane is against a Syndra this time around. Syndra, of course, full awareness of what he will be playing against, was locked in last by RNG. Good for the composition, but also decent for the laning phase, being a ranged champion that can last hit with a low cooldown spell. Moyu is the one who has chosen the Jax in the top lane against the Urgot. Something that I would say as a matchup goes, the Counter-Strike does negate a lot of damage and provides him with close quarters combat strengths. So for the matchup, it'll be decent for the Urgot early, but you can always see the strengths of a Jax in that 1v1.
He's got the ways to close the distance and deal not only damage over time, but good burst damage as well. But we've seen Urgot crop up a lot during playoffs here, and you were one of the people taking to Twitter today, and I know there were quite a few other people who are questioning why the LPL is picking up Urgot so frequently. Yes, he's AD Rumble, but doesn't quite explain why he's becoming so popular.
And we'll get much more into detail on Urgot as we do get onto the Rift for this game, because right now RNG on match point have selected the champion. They've gone for the Syndra with it as well, the burst composition. If they can kill one member of their opposing team, then the game starts to snowball. The team fight at the very least starts to snowball in their favor. But for Top Sports Gaming being 1-2 down, they've got the win. They found the recipe for success, and it was a Camille in the top lane this time around. They've picked a carry once again in top, but the Camille's in the jungle role, and that was where they lost that first game.
That's
He had
where
a very rough
XX looked
showing.
shapy.
Yeah.
He looked very shaky in that first game.
Definitely did. So hopefully he can find himself once again. They've had some time to go backstage and readdress the issues, perhaps solve them coming forwards.
XX was the man that we said needs to step up, needs to be the carry for TOP, like he has so many times before. If he wants to bring this to match point for TOP and take it to game 5 where it's do or die to advance, this is TOP's time, and it's a must-win series for TOP. A loss here against RNG, no matter what the score, means their run for this season is over.
Yes, they cannot even make the gauntlet if they get eliminated here, I believe. So for TOP, dire straits to say the least. But match point for RNG as they come into game 4.
It's a difficult task for TOP if they want to try and take it to the MSI champions of RNG, but they've already done it once in this best of 5. Let's see if they can send us to game 5 as we get onto the Rift for map number 4. LGD! No LGD yet because Colin's in a lot of trouble. Casa. Oh, that's
Whoa.
a flash forward. Ignite is ticking and ticking
That's
and
not gonna do enough.
ticking. Not quite.
At level 1, it was the potion used by Korn, though, so the recall has to come across. Think about the time in game as well, 1 minute and 15 seconds if he chooses to recall and doesn't have teleport. He'll miss a large chunk of the first wave.
He will.
That's such a big risk from RNG's mid laner, though. You flash forwards to ignite and get an auto attack off at level 1, and it doesn't kill the target. I mean, TOP, you just put a big mark on your head for their jungler to come at you.
Yep. And Colin still has both his summoner spells available as well. Yes, it will take him some time to be in a position to fight Xiaohu now. But when he is, XX can fly into that mid lane. That's an easy way for him to gank.
But speaking of XX, what's he doing?
He's level 1.
He's level 1. He hasn't started his buff. He's waiting for 2 minutes to do the scuttle crab.
Okay.
That's the name of the game here for him.
Well, meanwhile, Caster's just getting further and further ahead.
Yeah, and I guess when you look at it, you know, a Camille that's level 1 maybe not feeling too comfortable doing a big objective in terms of, you know, that you'll lose a lot of health for that. This is a free-to-take objective.
Does he hit 2 off of it?
Yes,
he does.
He always does.
So he gets towards level 2, and he's going straight towards mid lane.
No summoners on Xiaohu. What better way to play it? It's a flash Camille with hook shot up.
Flash.
Look at the way Xiaohu's posturing, though. He doesn't want to go to the top side.
Yeah, that's very smart play coming out from Xiao. You can see that Korn is playing towards that side of the map as well. Good first stun and a great flash from XX as well. Korn jumps in. Easy. First blood picked up by TOP.
Yeah, no matter how much you respect the direction, he was still going to be in trouble with the distance that you can cover as a Camille. They lock him down. They get first blood. Very well done here from TOP in the expected play, but with the expected result on top of that, where there's no counter really there for Xiaohu.
Ooh, missing that cannon there, Uzi. Not going to be too happy about that, but RNG's bottom side of the map doing well. You're right, no counter coming up, but Casa has been able to find XX. Level 2 at the moment. Gragas is taking it to him. Hookshot's going to get him back to safety. Casa does have flash to follow through, but will settle for all the counter jungling he's going to be able to get done.
And we spoke towards what happens at level 1. We saw a Camille at the enemy red buff walk towards Scuttle Crab, not even take an objective, and then ganks mid at level 2 without any buffs. Casa sees that. Casa immediately goes towards your red and says, "Where are you?" Finds him, gets the objective, gets the Raptors, and look at the difference in farm between these junglers. That was such a big gamble that XX chose to take. And whilst the kill was there, and whilst that snowballs the mid lane, Casa is a smart enough player to get that back against you. And we'll see this kill in the mid lane as well. Nice little flash forwards.
Very aggressive coming out from TOP, and that's why XX chose to sacrifice so much of his resource. Get the gank going in the mid lane very early for Korn. Korn picked up first blood as well, so a Kindle Gem is complete for him. Very nice item to have very early on. XX is only now picking up his second camp. Just took down blue buff.
And all I can really say at the end result of that is, what better time in a series to put all of the eggs into the corn basket as top lane? He's not going to get the stun.
And XX is still level 2 here, Rusty.
Yeah.
He just went from Scuttle Crab to gank. Straight back to base because Casa knocked him out of the jungle. Picked up blue buff. And straight back towards the top lane. XX is a ganking machine at the moment, and it's costing him a lot. He's 20 CS behind Casa, a full level behind Gragas as well.
And he's not having a good time on Summoner's Rift, and Let Me still controlling the 1v1 as the got into the Jax. So that gank in top lane, was it worth it? Probably not at all.
So tell me about this, Rusty. We've seen, you know, Urgot being a lot more popular recently, specifically in the LPL. And specifically on 8-16 in playoffs.
Yeah, everyone's become an Urgot main in the LPL in the top lane at the moment. A couple of things for it. The first one you have to consider is that he wins lane most of the time. Not a lot of matchups can actually handle him. We already spoke towards what a Jax could potentially do. And whilst that's absolutely the case, that a Jax can maybe hold him, especially at a single item spike moving past that point, Urgot is ranged, controls the lane. Nice little fear there onto Uzi to disengage it. We're looking mid right now.
Castle just going for some damage. Ooh, good damage on towards core, and that Ignite is gonna tick down, and Taka goes, and Xiaohu gets the kill.
RNG picked themselves up a trade in the middle lane. Casa utilizing the lead that he has. XX is going to do his best to just hold the wave, maybe get the experience. You can see that RNG, they know how far ahead they
want this. They're going to go towards it, gets the stunner towards XX on top of the wall, gets knocked down. A couple more attacks would be enough! The Dark Sphere waits for the shield to wear off as well.
And Xiaohu gets a blue buff. So he's going to take that away from XX, and things have gone from bad to worse here for TOP. Through this middle lane, a place where they had strength, Xiaohu picks up 2. And suddenly Xiaohu is well and truly in the lead in this lane.
That's not even a creative play. That is RNG flexing on TOP. Straight through mid lane both times. Jungler was on full vision. They knew exactly what was coming, and they still couldn't stop the freight train of RNG.
I mean, we said it earlier in the set as well. You put in Casa against XX and the style, my God.
Arrow to 2 knees at that point as TOP. Cat and Chocho get knocked down to 100 hit points. An extra auto attack is all it would have taken. No summoner spells being forced out of Uzi, none being forced out of Meg, just dominating the 2-on-2.
Yeah, they just control their lane. They just handle their lane. The CS difference between the bottom lane is significant. And so much of this comes back to the point that we were just going to make about Casa. You put in a good cerebral jungler. You put in a slow-paced but smart jungler against XX. You can see the style shift right now in this matchup between the two of them. And that's why Casa is likely better against MLXG. XX took risks in this game. He went for big gambits. And because they paid off a small amount, Casa had all this time to play around him and counter him. That's what he does. He had time. He made the play.
And it's paid off. RNG are sitting quite far ahead of TOP in match 4. This is match point for RNG to send them into the semifinals. All they have to do is take down TOP, who had a fantastic summer split, don't get me wrong. Xiaohu's about to pop Cat. Goodbye. Ooh.
He doesn't have enough damage yet. There was no Ignite available either, so if he had Ignite, Cat was dead.
See, cool guys do look at explosions. Don't just walk away. Even I thought that he was going to die. Level 5 Fiddlesticks, very squishy. No health items being picked up yet.
I mean, it's close. It's not quite the one hit that you're looking for, but moving forwards, you know that it will well and truly be there. And for Fiddlesticks, waiting for 10 minutes in the game to get the activation on that stopwatch. The only time he'll have counterplay to the likes of Xiaohu. Maybe if the Aftershock is able to be procced during the time as well, get some resistances. It'll help him through surviving in exactly that.
Will be around the time of his first ultimate, unless he uses it very soon. So that will help out Cat quite a bit, jumping into a fight, getting good damage down.
Yep.
The base damage from Fiddlesticks ultimate matters a lot for level 6, level 7.
For a second, I thought Casa was just going to walk into the lane and have presence, and him being there might be something of a power play towards the outer turret. First turret in the game. Still on the cards here, and as RNG go through their 2v2 laning, it'll be the place where it goes down first. That's what you're looking at here. RNG, very easy for them to just play bot side, play towards their strength, and Uzi's always their strength.
It is. And Uzi's having such a good laning phase at the moment. Ooh, Chocho getting a bit hypey there. Throws out the ultimate, but Ming was already able to put Uzi back inside his belly, keep him safe.
Varus also able to put the E down, deny healing from that Hemoplague, so feeling good for himself once again as the Varus in the 2v2. Chocho used that just to get health back and clear away. It's not looking too good for the Vladimir right now in this 2v2. That was desperate. That desperation continues.
Yeah. 54 CS to 89 CS, and RNG are repeating what they did in the last match, sending everyone bottom lane. Tom Kench coming through as well. Everyone's piling in. Cat tries to flash away, but that flash was for naught. As Uzi gets another kill for RNG.
Chocho survives. Shahu saved the ultimate looking for the Vladimir, but is able to get away with a lot of bonus move speed, thankfully, from being in the puddle, the blood puddle. And he gets himself to safety, but this turret is going to go down. They'll even give the solo gold to Uzi once he stops tanking the turret.
As with everything, Rusty, RNG are just used to it. Give everything to Uzi. He's almost double the CS of Chocho.
So wins you international tournaments, Fish. There's no reason to change that at all. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. They can just continue to play good standard League of Legends that is known and that works for them every single time. TFP the ones that have to do something different, and Cat is he's going to put his best foot forwards here and look towards Let Me, but he doesn't have a Jax, so not sure what his plan is.
See what they can do. Let Me still holding on to Ignite thanks to his unsealed spellbook.
Man.
Fear's going to come through. Moyu's going to jump back in, but Let Me says, sure, I'm happy to take this fight if you want.
Yeah, that's not ideal. That is a point past desperation, I think it's fair to say. I got one of those champions. We mentioned already, he doesn't really lose lanes. So he's got a very strong laning phase. He's matched the Jax quite evenly. You can see 95 to 91, and that was with jungler presence up there as well. He's doing quite well for himself, Let Me.
Yep.
He can also go the unsealed spellbook build and has gone towards Ignite. So doesn't go towards the teleport as his primary unless he's switched over to Ignite.
I believe he switched over.
I think he had teleport originally and switched to Ignite.
Which makes sense. Last few patches, teleport got nerfed. If you can run unsealed spellbook, it's a big advantage in the top lane.
Well, the thing that it gives you is that you can teleport after the fact anyway. They are diving Xiaohu.
Yeah, diving very deep as well. Xiaohu going to take a lot of damage, but he blows up XX before he falls. Korn is going to be knocked into his passive of the ultimate, trying to get away from this one. Lemmy's going to charge on through. Priority coming out from Urgot. It's just way too strong. Ming gobbles up Cat. Trying to get that kill there for Casa. Throws out the barrel, picks it up, donated over by RNG support.
Even gifting the kill to Casa. What more could you possibly want here from RNG? They're looking clean, they're looking fantastic, and they even do it as countermeasures. Let Me in the right place at the right time. Doesn't need to teleport into the fray this time, but also has the Ignite that he could use. The unsealed spellbook coming in handy. Chocho in an attempt to defend the turret.
Throws out his ultimate, so we get a lot of health back from this. Tongue Lash is good. Chocho forced to flash away as Ming says, see you, mate. We're going towards the top lane.
Yeah. Good cookbook. Here's a lane they've prepared earlier. Uzi takes the turret down. RNG, once again, they grow the lead even further.
Uzi's going to be a happy man. This entire time RNG were fighting and being dove and skirmishing. Free pushing top lane, free CS for Uzi. Taking turrets by himself as well.
And Xiaohu, of course, gets locked down there because he used the stun to try and clear the wave. So he's just going to get ignited. He's going to get taken apart. Let Me use the ultimate to try and find Camille. He's got enough damage here. You can see the Ignite to follow that one up. Easy as you'd like in the 1v1. And then good guy Ming, the true support, knows that Casa's coming. He's got the Predator. He's really feeling it. You don't even get to see it. He died.
So does Xiaohu. Is he just going to take it down there? But Casa still reckons he can pick this fight. Let Me's right behind them and just pops him.
That's a fragile cat.
It's a Fiddlesticks.
Yeah, he's going to get taken apart. And the trade's going to be there against Xiaohu's the only one having a bad day. Perfect game for RNG besides the middle lane at the moment.
Feeder. Bench him, puts the tie in instead.
I have a feeling Zatai would also die in that situation.
Don't you talk bad about him?
I mean, he's a top laner.
No. He's mid. He played mid in this series. Don't you forget?
This is the most pointless argument that I'm not going to have with you right now.
Okay. Haven't seen too much from Let Me just yet. He's doing fine in lane. Has his stopwatch available. Did use the Ignite that he swapped over to from Unsealed Spellbook. He's actually
switches to heal, yeah.
Swapped his flash out for heal. He still has his flash up and available, by the way.
Oh, does he?
Yep.
My assumption is that he didn't have it, but
I thought he had it. From what I remember, he still had his flash. I could be wrong.
Why not?
I mean, you can use it, wait 5 seconds, and then flash.
Yeah, he needs the teleport more than he does the flash if he's not going to be grouping up. But he's walking down lane, so he doesn't necessarily need the teleport. However, he is here. He's here to help. And if you look at RNG's composition, a thing that we haven't mentioned is Urgot and Syndra is the perfect duo. Syndra can pretty much remove the entire health bar of a character, and Urgot with the ultimate will get that execute. That gives RNG the free kill from 25%.
Ooh. Double stun. Cat's forced to use his stopwatch there as they lock down Aatrox. Korn can't go anywhere. Gets knocked into the passive of his ultimate right away. RNG are still pushing through. Xiaohu from downtown picks up the kill with his own
14
ultimate.
minutes in the game.
They're pushing. They want Dancing Herald, Rusty.
They are still pressing forwards. They're stancing in front of the inhibitor. They want another charge from this Herald for certain.
Are they going to get it?
I
Corns?
can't believe how early we are for them to do this.
Wait, Corn's 18 seconds away. RNG could push for this.
They are
Ty's going to
still
take a lot of
going.
damage. RNG are pushing through. No response coming out from TOP just yet. They want to try and take this down. Moy's going to jump in straight away. They caught out XX. Taking a lot of damage. Using the XX ultimate. He's going to fall. Cho diving into the back
by
lines.
himself, he's
All
dead.
by himself. He's dead. What the heck? You've got to be kidding me. Are RNG going to end right here? No way.
RNG are just smurfing in this game. They're looking.
They're pushing for it. RNG are pushing towards the turret. Korn, 1-0 attack away from dying, gets taken out. Triple kill. Can he get the Quadra? Going towards him. Casa gets it instead. But on top of TOP's
Here
face.
comes the super. They're going to try and end the game right now. There's death timers that are very short, but
You've
at
got
15
to be
minutes.
kidding. It was close for the first two matches. TOP, they really took it to RNG. But 15 minutes in, RNG take it. And they're going to the semifinals. They just tore apart TOP. It was not even close anymore.
I cannot believe what I just saw. This is a playoffs quarterfinals, and they just won in 15 minutes against one of the best teams in the league.
Look, they brought out the raid boss for Game 3, Rusty, but they turned it on to legendary difficulty for Game 4. That was near impossible for TOP to have any sort of a fighting chance against RNG. And 15 minutes, you've got to be freaking kidding me.
I mean, this isn't even first last in the standings. This is playoffs teams. RNG come back from Asia Games. They drop a game to JD. They drop a game today, but then they bring back Casa, Letme, and Uzi. And this team of 5 can win a game that handily. This feels like they are smurfing in the playoffs of the LPL. Can anyone stop this team?
Well, look out, because RNG, the playoff buff, so strong at the moment, Rusty. I mean, we said it best. First two games, sure, TOP came out swinging with the substitute, effectively the substitute roster of RNG playing. It's their best time to pick up games. They failed in Game 1. It should have been TOP's game. They succeeded in Game 2. Out comes the raid boss, and completely different story for this quarterfinal match.
I mean, Summer Games done quick just came early. That was speedrunning of the LPL. I've never
Save the
seen
animals.
something. That's just insane.
You've got to save the animals at that point because TOP needed some saving. But how? 15 minutes?
I mean, at the end of the day, RNG do win fish, and congratulations are deserved for them, whilst it's very shocking in how they won. They have earned their place against Rogue Warriors.
10,000 gold ahead, they find a single pick, and that single pick translates into a fight underneath TOP's Nexus turrets. And TOP couldn't fight back, they couldn't hold.
They have just made one of the best teams in the LPL look like the absolute fools, the jokesters of the league. RNG show that this is the kind of performance, man. I hope everyone in the rest of the world's watching RNG right now and they're shaking in their boots.
I mean, to put it this way, Tomcash did more damage than 4 players from the side of TOP, but that's enough from us to break down this entire series. Let's send it back to the analyst desk.
Hello, 911. I'd like to report a murder on Summoner's Rift. That was 15 minutes. Went backstage and I was ready to eat a sandwich, and I didn't get to eat that sandwich. So the game was done.
That was the fastest LPL game to be played in 2018, and it happened in a playoffs. Now, for me, like, the biggest thing that really happened right there was after the first risky play that came out from Camille, the level 2, where he started on a scuttle just to make sure he had enough HP to go into a potential 2v2 in mid, and then he went towards his Raptors. He found Karsa right there, was already waiting. That was the moment I was like, uh-oh, man, I think this game is over. Because right after that, Camille was forced away back to his own base, and Karsa quadrupled the amount of CS he had over Camille on the early rotation, and they had a losing bot lane, a losing top lane, and they had no way to save it.
And there's a reason why TOP has the quickest average loss time in the league. It's not because also some of the quickest win time, but that's because they actually continue to push in. They're not the team that actually tries to wait until opportunities arise. They try and force a fight. They try and look for desperate situations. The one that you were calling to is the fact that, you know what, Camille not CSing because she tried for so many ganks and losing matchups too, so they didn't have lasting impact. So not being able to farm for level 6 was really impactful for her. It was just a go-ahead for Karsa to be able to farm up and actually place down more impactful control wards to leave these lanes in a pretty proper position. And then you see it out of Cat, which was in a losing lane. He goes top lane and see if he can find something top lane. Nothing. He just loses his ultimate. They know that the support is now top side, and the RNG looks all the way towards the bottom lane so that they not only take full control of mid lane outer turret, but then they're like, okay, well, we just have full focus here. We'll try and repel that in about 1 minute. They just went tower after tower because of these
It was doubling down on players over and over and over again, and then even on a microcosm within the final teamfight as well. It was just like, well, let's keep going at them and see how it turns out, and then the game ends.
Yeah, I want to talk about the ban picks because I think a lot went wrong for TOP straight off the bat. If you look at Aatrox and Vladimir, this was likely a top and mid switch, but what happened was then RNG had a trump card. They unveiled their trap, and it was the Urgot pick, which does well into both the Vladimir and the Aatrox. So now TOP are in a panic. They're going like, wait a minute, where do we actually put the Vladimir anymore? And they said, well, we have to get a matchup that we can snowball in the top lane for Moryu, and Moryu goes on the Jax. And then suddenly Chocho has to go on to Vladimir, which is a horrible matchup into the Vladimir. And Vladimir was already shown to them. The healing reduction coming out from the lane, the extra poke coming out from the lane. There's no way that that lane actually survives. But TOP, in a panic, they were willing to sacrifice their bot lane just for a chance for snowballing at the top. And when neither really works, the entire thing just collapses.
It's interesting because I know that a few teams, in fact, the most picked counter matchup, or at least matchup that people are fine with, is picking Vladimir into the Urgot, only because they'll say we'll somehow survive out of that lane. There's a sustain that you have, and you can find out in team fights. But you're right in the fact that they just overthought this situation, and their bottom lane was a Vladimir Fiddlesticks that just got completely torn apart just in the laning phase and alone. I'm just talking about the skill level. The skill difference between Chocho and Uzi was massive on that one, and then they already gave him a proper lane, so the Varus and Tom Kench, which is your best bottom lane in the meta, was able to tear it apart. So obviously now if you're XX, you don't have CS, you have no control where now Karsa knows where you are in positioning, and your side lanes are losing out. I think he had good pressure mid lane, so the Aatrox was doing well. Congratulations, but it didn't mean enough. So because a lot of the pressure that they now started to funnel throughout the mid lane, much like they did last game, was getting counteracted by RNG's members that they were just tunneling in there. It was
literally that. It was like Game 3 just condensed down into Game 4, like even packed in. Because even that was like a 26-minute game. Then we follow up with a 15-minute game, which is insanity. Take a look at the final fight right here. And it was just, again, TOP just throwing themselves at RNG, trying to get them out of their base. And at this point, death times are real low, so you can keep throwing members at them.
The thing is, they're calling on towards TOP's desperation. They didn't have to throw in the Vladimir. They didn't have to fight until the Aatrox comes out. It's essentially RNG standing their ground, much like a BLG would, and say, okay, we'll take this tower. You're going to fight us before your member comes up, so it's a 5v5. All right, there we go. They kept picking people off because TOP kept running at them time and again without the necessary members to actually try and push them off, really.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. It was one by one. I don't know if you guys have played Lemmings, but that was it. It was just one by one by one. It wasn't a coordinated effort. It was just like, I see an opportunity, I'm going to jump in. They die, and it's like, I'll be fine. I'm up in 15 seconds because it's literally 15 minutes into the game, but members were down. They were taking structure. They pushed up to the next. Xiaohu's going to take our MVP right here. He did die to the mid lane in the first blood, but he killed him back, and that's what counts. He got the final lap.
Yeah, he definitely got the final triple kill to clean the game out, but I actually felt like his performance here was a little bit unsteady. What really held them in the game, I felt, was Karsa's early rotations and his complete domination over the jungle and ensuring that the bot lane would also win out really, really heavily as well.
Yeah, I think Karsa is a counter pick. I feel like you put in Karsa and it's all of the risk taking that comes through from TOP. Just good eye on it. They always know how to play around it. Karsa playing around the known vision wards out there, making it so the lanes are never safe, the side lanes that are. So 100%, I felt like Karsa outplayed the entire matchup. When he came into the series, he had a very phenomenal series. I think Xiaohu will get the MVP because although they sent members towards him, you didn't tilt. Congratulations. You know, you kept it. You kept your mentality upright. So I thought that he played well under the circumstances.
Yeah, untiltable. Let's take a look at the championship points, I should say, coming out of today's matchup. Now down there, TOP, that's going to be at the end of their run, managed to get themselves 10 points here in summer, but that will be at the end of it. Meanwhile, RNG sat still at the top, 130 points total.
So I just want to see top 3, of course, EDG, Rogue Warriors, RNG, how that ends up going up. Because remember, Rogue Warriors and RNG is going to be the next set that you see.
I don't even think about top 3 because you could be seeing JD actually sneak
That's
in.
true.
So when you're talking about EDG in that top 3, I'm like, wait a minute, you don't know that's actually going to happen. But closing it off on TOP, even if JD Gaming lose tomorrow and they don't get their 10 points, they will still supersede TOP in terms of championship points because they have more net wins. So unfortunately for TOP, this is the end of their 2018 story.
Yes, it is, but it's not the end of many other teams. We take a look at the bracket here as well. Many of the teams have a long ways to go. RNG starting in the quarterfinals now. In the semi-finals, we'll be taking on Rogue Warriors. That will happen on the 9th. And as you can see, just back-to-back best-of-5s from September 5th all the way through to the end of semi-finals.
True to the words of a playoff gauntlet, you're rolling. So for TOP, congratulations for getting this far. But you're right, RNG in 2 days will go up against Rogue Warriors. And for tomorrow, EDG versus JD, that one's going to be the most competitive match you've seen thus far.
Yeah, that's definitely the most contested one. Personally, I'm leaning a little bit more towards EDG after watching JD Gaming's performance and kind of their struggles a little bit with FPX. But what are your thoughts on that matchup? Because that one's definitely the one that has everyone split in terms of opinions.
I know the producers will not trust me anymore because I just
think anyone does, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know anymore. I'm going to say I'll give it to EDG on what seems like a cop-out. Because while JDG are a team that has succeeded them time and again in the regular season, going into the playoffs, it feels like they're a better team-fighting team, and that's EDG keeps like falling and slipping over. But it's playoffs, and that's where it comes down to EDG last time around. People didn't expect EDG to go into the finals. They were weak last time, too, in the spring split. But the issue is that certain members came out. And it was Scout that had such an astounding performance in the playoff games. And the same goes to iBoy as well. That these guys can go on that massive stage and can prove their worth. It's a major challenge to JDG's individual players to do the same.
Now, the playoff buff is always going to be a thing. You talk about any of the flagship teams of any league, you're going to be looking at EDG as well. It took them again to the finals. We see another EDG RNG final. It's like, all right, the script is still here, boys. It's intact. But then the cracks started showing. RNG, first time they actually managed to take down EDG. Coming into summer, the question is, has the cracks turned into just them splitting apart, right? Like EDG, we've seen the problems from them all split long. We saw that massive losing streak all the way through the middle of the split. And then we have JD right here, only looking better and better and better as we accelerate into the quarterfinals.
I think the biggest matchup is going to come down to their jungler, because I think that's where EDG can have the highest highs and the lowest lows at the same time. Clearlove, he's a very limited champion pool. Haro, still a little bit limited in terms of the experience and the shot calling down the stretch. So they're caught between difficult situations, and from what we've seen this split, JD Gaming actually ran them off the map once they got an early game lead. So that jungle matchup between Haro, Clearlove, potentially one of those two against Clid is going to be the big one that I watch tomorrow.
By all means, it feels like just based off the team play alone, and I feel like Clid's outperforming in the regular season, it should be JDG.
Yeah.
But my issue is that when it comes to it, we need to see pressure-wise if Yagao could come out as a superstar, if Loken can do the same, and if Clid can keep consistent. These are these names that I really want to track going into tomorrow's games. Because when it comes to those two teams just clashing heads, I think JDG should do it, and that's why I'm opening up the flip-flopping, all right? We have one day. We have 24 hours. 24 hours. You can keep track of it. See how much I keep swapping over. But for now, I'm going to say it goes to 5 games, and that EDG will.
I mean, Raz, it's about the final 5 minutes when you submit your final prediction. Not about the 24 hours that leads up to this. It's when you actually lock it in. But no, like you're talking about the individual players, and for me, it's definitely about the individual players. Like if you're looking towards JD, controversial question right here. Do they have the better players pound for pound over EDG right now?
Oh, wow.
Because you look at top lane and look how strong Zoom has been individually.
I'd say top side, yes.
Yeah.
I say bot side, no.
I would say with EDG that individual players, I would say they have it. Just because iBoy, first dang split was in Worlds and he came out with incredible plays. And then I think Ray, while there are issues of where the pressure goes and sometimes he gets double teamed in those plays, he's a carry player too. I think he can match with Zoom. I think Zoom is far more consistent and has been in tune with the team's plays. So it always comes down to when it comes to individuals, sure, but it's Season 8, individuality. we'll have to see if EDG can come together as a team.
I mean, just the fact there's a debate over which team is going to take this one. This is EDG that we're discussing right here in the quarterfinals, I think is super interesting. But for now, that was a small preview. We're going to be coming with you at you with that series tomorrow and another best of 5 in our quarterfinals. For now, though, we're going to close out the show on behalf of myself, my analysts, everyone on the English broadcast crew. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
今天要面对 Top， 然后他们让我最有印象的就是他们打野熊熊，因为其实我就赛季初的时候就是因为他那时候打的不怎么亮眼吧，然后其实我觉得在季中季末的时候他表现得非常的好，是我会去学习的一个对象，所以我很期待在季后赛的时候跟他交手。
Well, he'll get his chance because Carster's now subbing into the roster for RNG, and so is Uzi into the bottom lane. So Korn has successfully drawn out the people he wants to take down, specifically Uzi in the bottom side. But yeah, learning off of the jungler here, and he managed to get the first 2 games to actually study how XX is doing.
And here comes the big guns from RNG. If they're talking about Karsa, he has had 30 games compared to 15 on MLXG, and he has a much higher rate of first bloods and early gank kills. So I think that's why they're taking him in to try to straighten out their laning phases.
And I think the best attribute Karsa has is being able to, well, like Zach said in the cast, focus in on the enemy jungle. Track them, nullify their pressure, because one great thing about XX is his gank pressure. He ganks quite frequently, and a lot of the times he's able to get the first bloods based off the fact that you just don't see his pathing. Not going to be an issue when you have Karsa on your lineup. So for RNG, bringing in Uzi and Karsa, this is the best iteration of RNG.
Yeah, pathing in the early game and also how the laning phase is going to go as well. Uzi coming here over Abel. I mean, Abel definitely has the mechanics, but Uzi, you look at him, he's got the whole package.
Yeah, Uzi definitely has a laning phase on his pocket, in his pockets for sure. Still has the highest CSD at 13.52. So what we're expecting is a much more focused early game coming in from RNG, possibly bot lane dives, definitely going to try and shove the lanes in more often.
Yeah. I want to see that coming out of the draft more as well, because we had Malphites in there, we had the Zax, and a lot of this was being counted out there by TOP. So I want to see if the draft actually changes towards looking to more the early game, or whether you go for the same type of draft and you just have different players piloting it.
And one thing true, I agree to that point. How are you doing, Karsa?
Oh, he's just repeating himself, if we didn't hear him the first time.
I know. It's one of those points when you finally get the spotlight on you. You need to make those words count.
Exactly.
But one point that I want to echo here with Karsa is the fact that he's very strong in terms of wards killed per minute. I feel like if you compare him to MLXG, he's able to control the bottom side of the map and focus, or at least force the enemy team to play your game. I wonder what TOP ends up doing if they still play to the top side of the map towards Moyu, because ultimately a lot of teams break under that. They either try and work too quickly, in the example being Snake, and they don't end up they lose a lot of pressure because RNG is pushing the game a lot more faster than you would expect them to. Or you try and defend your bottom lane, put some defensive wards, and play towards a bottom lane fight, but then RNG just brings in more members. That's what Let Me is so much more famous for, is when he goes to these international competitions, his teleport timing is perfect. It always comes down to a 5v4 situation. You have to challenge him in a 5v5, but RNG's setup is just better. So this is the competition you have to face up against. This is what you have to deal with if you're TOP.
And that's the fundamental difference in cognition between the LPL and the LCK. For the LPL, if you go bottom, you're always going to get more out of that trade. There's more people to kill, there's towers to take, there's dragons to take. So I agree with you. If TOP want to put their eggs into the top lane basket, they're going to have to do a very long investment and make sure they can continue to split push.
Yeah, there's lots of ways they can play around bot lane, top lane, hey, even the mid lane as well. But now we're going to get into a champion select, and we are going to send it over to our casters to get us into game number 3.
Thank you, and what's up, guys? It's Rusty as well as Fish here, the No Pants casters, going into game 3 for the Best of 5 series, and already in picks and bans for this third map. Carly, Alsta as well as Swain being taken away once again by RNG. Kai'Sa as well as Rakan and Rise will be banned out by TOP. Varus, the first pick that comes out for Chocho, and Aatrox has been let through here, Rusty, picked up by RNG.
Yeah, Aatrox going to be locked in here now. That's a big pick for RNG. Of course, Xiaohu could even consider it, but Let Me will be the Aatrox most likely in this one, with the Gragas secured as well, being able to flex into different lanes. We'll have to see how that one plays out. For TOP, they banned Kaiser away on blue side. That's how much they want Varus, and that's how much they don't want Uzi picking the Kaiser for himself. I respect it, but we'll have to see if that plays out because they got Aatrox as a result.
You said Abel's not the problem, but Uzi might be the solution. Well, just the name has already changed things in Champion Select. XX will go back towards Sejuani. He had a good game on Sejuani in the last map.
He did. He was very much in form compared to that game one where he was 0-6, I believe, on the Camille as the game ended. So for TOP, they'll get some engage in the jungle position. They're going to round out their bottom lane as well with a Braum. Very strong combo. Choice. Yeah, definitely a strong choice as well with a Varus for lane control, regardless of who the support or AD carry will be. That's what you have to look at here.
Oh, well, normally you stand behind Braum, but he's going to stand right in front of Uzi and try and stop him from dealing damage to the rest of his team as he will lock in Xayah as his AD carry of choice. No Rakan to be picked up as the ban went through for TOP.
Yeah.
Still a very strong pick.
With the Rakan banned and the Xayah locked in, of course, it's just about having an AD carry with a bit of safety in it. If you think of Xayah on a standalone champion, good into the Braum ultimate, good into the Sejuani ultimate, okay into the Varus ultimate. You can dodge it for certain, but if you're stuck in place, you just go up in the air and nothing happens, besides being untargetable for that hot second. So RNG, they'll pick themselves an AD carry that can scale quite well into the late game. Remember that Gragas can still flex into the role.
Varus does scale very well into the late game as well, and he does have a good lane into Xayah without Rakan. Has the range advantage, has the harass advantage as well. And Braum's going to be there to make sure that he stays safe. Xayah is a very low-range champion, so if Cat can get on top of Uzi, it's going to be difficult for him to fight back.
I'm curious to see if the Shen actually hits the bench here alongside the Tahm Kench.
Bench the Kench.
Alistar's going to be removed earlier in the draft phase as well, but that's not the direction they want to go. They're not sure where that Aatrox will be, so they take away the Ornn from Let Me just in case. You have to respect that one.
Because when Aatrox got reworked, we saw him play more top lane than the mid side of the map. He was already being played before his rework in both lanes. Once he got the big buffs just after Rift Rivals, it was mostly mid lane. From time to time, flex towards top side of the map. Now that a lot of Nurse has gone through, you've got to be kidding me. That's not going to happen. Kai'Sa, just stop. But it will be the Kindred being picked up here as the jungler of choice for RNG.
Yeah, they lock down the Kindred. So the jungle role, that does ultimately mean that the Gragas will be going into support once again for RNG in this third game of the series, becoming a bit of a one-trick, it feels like, against TOP.
Could be Let Me's champion, or Xiaohu go back to his AP Gragas. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Rusty. You're 99% right here, but come on.
The 1%. That's what you got to pan it towards, mate. Is that it? Of course, you're waiting for, so you know his jungle matchup, let's say, Kai'Sa, is pick the Kindred into the Sejuani. Lots of crowd control, not a lot of scoot backs. And that's going to remain consistent through the rest of the TOP draft here. That Kindred ultimate could actually be huge. And I am curious to see how that's going to pan out with a Vladimir on the opposing side. There is a direct counter already drafted for potentially in a team fight, but they picked the Vlad into.
Vladimir's ultimate does well into Kindred. You can pop it down as soon as Kindred throws out her ultimate. It should be able to deal damage after, but Galio locked in for RNG.
Yeah, I've got my concerns here for TOP. I think their draft is strong in its own right. I think they've got a lot of lane prowess through the bottom lane. Sejuani for ganks, and Korn is on his Aurelia. When TOP played against Suning Gaming, Aurelia was 4-0 in the set out of all 4 games. So very strong champion of choice, and Korn looked very proficient on the champion. Is into the Galio, and we have seen some Aurelias almost take him down, especially with the Ignite available. Maybe going for kill threat in lane. Top's the only one that's going to be on the weak side, and I mean, Moyu was the star of the show in game number 2. They're not going to empower him through laning phase.
Still not bringing in Lies at all for the side of TOP. Starting with Moyu, nothing about their roster has really changed, but RNG have definitely changed a lot. Game 2, they bring in Let Me. And then Game 3 is where the raid boss comes out. Rusty Uzi is going to be starting in this match. Kai'Sa is playing as well, so the coin flip of MLXG is out again. But all tied up. Not many people expected TOP to be tied up after Game 2.
Nobody expected it at all. Not even coming into the set until you saw perhaps the roster from RNG, but even then the analysts still were very confident in RNG and said they should be able to get the victory. Some of them even saying 3-0.
A big flip-flop
Thank you,
as
Flash
well.
Player, for the sponsorship. It's a little bit last minute, I think.
Just stuck on there. They've got, I mean, RNG got their new KFC on their jersey as well. Bit of a variety bucket going on there.
But it's 1-1, and there is, it's really distracting. There is so much momentum for TOP that it's not funny. If you think back to the first game, you probably go backstage and say, we made the mistakes, we lost the game. That's on us. RNG played well, but we had the lead. Game number 2, from start to finish, it felt like they had the bulk of the control, and they snowballed that out. So coming into the third one, if nothing else, there's momentum for TOP, but I wonder how that momentum feels mentally, just knowing that RNG have brought out the star-studded roster. They've got the superstars in.
Yeah, they have the chance to put RNG at match point here. TOP could have been at match point if they were a little bit cleaner in game 1, because that was a 7,000-8,000 gold lead. That was them with Baron buff, but RNG fought back nice and strong. Now going into game 3 here, Rusty. It's TOP's chance to put even more pressure onto the MSI champions of RNG, send them to match point, put the shoe on the other foot for a change. See if they can do that as we get onto the Rift. Game 3, TOP taking on RNG. No! LGD are not playing!
Every time. It seems like LGD has become a meme as the third team to chant for, but we're on the Rift regardless. We can pretend to... LG are a thing of the past.
Look, when you have
the wigs are gone.
When you have such a cool name of Old Sugar Daddy, you've got to chant it from time to time.
I don't even want you to elaborate on that. We're just going to let that one sit.
Why?
Because we're going to talk about the game. It's game 3 of the playoffs, bro.
But they just said LGD!
Shut up.
No, actually, I would get fired. If I shut up, Rusty, I will get fired.
I apologize. Anyway, we are on the Rift. And Galio in the mid lane against Aurelio with Ignite is something that we mentioned in Champions League. That's a place I'm going to be looking towards. This is a conscious walkthrough of the lane as well into the Tri-Bush. TOP had vision there. Bottom lane should be in control for TOP. Mid lane should have kill threat for them as well. Top lane's the place where they are on the weak side of the map, playing Vladimir into Aatrox in that 1v1. So comparatively to game number 1, there is a strong and a weak side. It's not just general play for even drafting overall. Okay. And that's where RNG may be able to pick at some advantages potentially. Caster already invading on that side of the map.
Yep, Caster is invading. He's going to take away blue buff, and he does have the Scuttle Crab that's marked. Meanwhile, XX going for a very early gank at the bottom lane. Uzi is going to be the target. They hit level 2, very early heal, very early flash to get Uzi back to safety. Will be stun locked here. Ming will take some damage as well. And he gets stunned by the Braum passive. But some of the spells are burnt by Uzi, and they get away from that level 2 gank.
Yeah, big disconnect actually from the bottom lane and the jungler of TOP. With a Braum and a Sejuani, their level 2 ganks are very potent, but that's because they both have 4-hit passives that can stun. Each individual got stunned, and it wasn't layered CCs. Now it's TOP's mid laner's turn to try and back away.
Corner's going to get locked down. Caster jumps in for some good damage. Cooldowns are not going to come up fast enough. Korn will be forced to flash away, gets knocked down to about half of his hit points, forced to chug a couple of his corrupting potion charges.
Yeah, very active movement so far, particularly from the junglers looking for places to be. The real winner here is Caster, however, as he went from blue to mid, now back to his own blue buff, and we'll get the 3-buff start in the end. Sejuani will be okay to clear some camps and get back to base, but she'll be behind the ball. Not in the most comfortable position after that gank bottom was not successful.
RNG will be pushing on the bottom side of the map as well. Ming will be constantly poking with his barrels. Really want to touch on Vladimir for a second here though, Russ, because although originated as a top lane champion, we've been seeing a lot more Vladimir in the bottom lane or even in the mid lane more often than not. Top lane is an old home for Vladimir that we don't see too often of.
Yeah, we're going to get a chance to see that in the top lane. Still been seen recently in the playoffs as well. It's just about scaling up, hitting those big team fights, and you know, once you hit the team fight stage, whilst Aatrox is potent, Vladimir is always going to one-up him in that regard. So that's a big thing that you're going to have to look at if you can weather the storm in that early game. And speaking of weathering storms, you just saw the teleport used by Chocho not having the best experience down that bottom lane. But that teleport does put him in a comfortable position as the lane goes, because Uzi has no summoners.
That just feels very awkward though for Chocho. He teleports in to get 2 extra minions. He'll have access to this wave, and he will stop Ming from going back to base. But with Teleport having such a long cooldown at the moment, which one of the One of the... Oh, that's just disgusting.
That hurts.
One of the reasons for having teleport on such a long cooldown now was to take it away from other positions and not have it on 4 to 3 different champions on the map. Not the best use from Chol. Aatrox's passive, the stab that you see, breaking shields, denying a lot of healing as well. It just seems like this is actually a very good matchup for Aatrox.
There should be no real world where the Vladimir handles him whatsoever. With either Puddle even needing to be used defensively, but still doesn't mean he'll win the trade. That'll be consistent for quite some time to come. And we saw Kasa already take away a blue buff. Well, the potential is still there for him to invade once again. Perhaps play aggressively, perhaps use the top lane as Letme.
Moyu's going to get stabbed. Letme's going to dash around. Can't quite see what's going on. His PowerPoint presentation is a little bit from 1994, but he's going to get the first blood in the top lane. Does get taken out by Xiao. But TOP fight back. Still a big play coming out from the Rung.
Yeah, good positioning from XX to get the trade at all, but you can see how much control Letme has up there, and that's the thing. It's the weak side of the map, and now it's bringing XX up there to have pressure at all. Of course, he was just on that side of the map, as we are unfortunately going to be into a pause. Letme saying it wasn't a bug.
Wasn't a bug, I was just that good. Seems to be on TOP's side, the pause coming out here. If we get more information, we'll let you guys know what's happening, what's gonna happen as we know.
It's not a big surprise so far, really, on the Rift overall. Uzi comes in, they have more control in the bottom lane. That's more expected the way that he plays the lane out. Move towards the top lane. Aatrox is killing a Vladimir. I mean, that's easy as he wrote. That's the matchup determined. The dive is a very aggressive choice from him. But with all the prior trades that were going in his favor, Lemmy's able to make those plays. Kasa starting a bit more cerebrally than that of MLXG, looking for invades, looking for smaller plays across the Rift. I mean, everything here is just your stock standard RNG experience. But you contrast that with TOP. Not playing towards their strong side of the map besides the level 2 gank actually backfired a little bit. Even miscommunications, it felt like, between the players. That was one of their big bets they made, but that was a very aggressive and very early big bet that he chose to make as a Sejuani.
The LPL fans are amazing, Rusty.
They have got some of the best memes and posters and the signs, and the crowd is wonderful.
But also every interaction I've had with a fan of the LPL has been so positive so far, especially after moving here to Shanghai.
Yep.
Everyone's just so lovely. They're always very nice, they're very respectful, and a genuinely curious bunch, the LPL audience.
Yeah, appreciate them dealing with all the interactions we've had. They just thank us. And we're never sure why they say thank you, but they just appreciate the work we're doing. It's very refreshing to have such positivity, you know, around all the time.
Well, you and I got a fun experience the other week, Rusty. We were able to go over towards the RNG house and play with a couple of the academy players that were training there for a couple of weeks. That was a lot of fun. They were very nice as well. Absolutely stomped me in the matches we played with them. It was not fun. I was a plat player in amongst Diamond and Master players.
Cholcho in trouble.
Cholcho in a lot of trouble. That's an instant body slam flash. Cholcho's going to try and get away from this. Not happening.
And they managed to give the kill to Uzi as well, so they don't play any risky business. They know the calculations have been done. And Kasa now working with Ming. It feels like they've brought out the beast in RNG.
Make it stop, though. Oof.
That's rough. Boots of Lucidity, no teleport, no potions. Moyu's just going to have to go back to base and call that one a day and wrap it up. And very behind now in top lane. You look towards bottom, Uzi just picks up a kill. You look towards mid, they had the gank, they had control. The Ignite Aurelia didn't get any kills. Hasn't gone towards the Sheen or the big first purchase just yet, but is controlling that lane, Xiaohu, and is also level 6 on the Galio. Everything going right for RNG.
Even this, they collapsed towards XX deep into his own jungle. They forced him to use the Blast Cone to get away. This is big for Kasa. He's got 2 stacks going for himself already on Kindred, and having complete and whole access to the side of XX jungle, Misi could potentially set up to get more of these marks later on in the match.
Yeah, and look at the Sejuani's pathing right now. Really wants the Krugs, but it's not feeling confident. May even just be looking for a counter gank in the bottom lane. Kasa, instead, however, is going to go from bot side to top side, go from red to red. Secure double the objectives, double the buffs once again. Now, Gromp is marked by the Kindred, so we'll see if that's the direction he wants to go. Just avert your eyes, everyone. It's too painful to watch.
If he hit that Q 1 second earlier, or even half a second earlier, that should have been a dead Moyu. But this is disgusting. Top side of the map. I expected maybe they throw the Irelia into the matchup. But instead going for the Vladimir matchup, it's not working out well for TOP so far. And Corn in the mid lane is already having such a tough time against Xiaohu. You said it yourself. He is controlling this mid lane matchup, but Corn actually fancies his chances in the 1-on-1. Tort's going to come through, waits for the Vanguard edge to wear off. Kasa is here, uppercut, knocks Corn into the air, gets the stun down. Kasa going to try, chase through, Wolf chomps down, Corn gets taken down.
And Kasa locks it down very easily. Xiaohu, unfortunately, for Corn is too tanky, and you can't take him down. It was the Sheen, it was the Ignite, it was the timing that you would expect for an Aurelia to go for the engage, but you can't get those kills. Even though the Aftershock wasn't available from Xiaohu, I fully respect the decision to go from Corn. He picked a good moment. Kasa, of course, nearby will secure the kill. I wonder if he'll even get that in the 1v1 anyway. Well, they're in.
TOP looking for the fight bottom lane. Uzi is level 6, but Ming is not. Teleport is going to come in. Ultimate being thrown out by Uzi. Chocho separating for the team. Cat, one hit away from being taken out. Good taunt towards Chocho. Uzi gets that kill. Chocho going to disengage. And look at that. They give it to their king as well. They're just waiting for Uzi to collapse it towards Chocho. He moves towards the turret. That will take him down. Gives the kill credit over towards Xiao.
Gets himself executed under the turret to ensure that it's not Uzi picking up yet another kill. 2-0-1 is the Xayah in this bottom lane. And RNG suddenly look like they really have awoken the beast. TOP, you've made the best mistake you've ever made in League of Legends, it feels like. We'll see the engage once again in bottom lane. Uzi will flash forwards to pick up that kill, and Xiaohu exactly where he needs to be, right on time. And this is where you'll see the depression state from Chocho. What do I do? Well, I don't give it to Uzi. That would hurt too much. If that's the best option, things are looking dire.
Suddenly, RNG with their full roster, their MSI roster, come in game 3 and complete change. Now the game is a lot more aggressive, a lot of fighting taking place before 10 minutes, and the macro as well as the micro plays are going in favor of RNG.
Definitely are. The lead starts to stretch as well. 9 minutes in the game, over 2,000 in favor of our red side team. We're also hitting those first big item spikes. So with the lead they have, it means they'll get the spikes first. You can look at mid lane and jungle just to see where a big part of the difference lies. Remember that could very easily translate towards the rest of the map. It's an Infernal Dragon as well as the first of the game. I'd expect that's where their attention shifts.
2 kills for Uzi haven't translated much yet though. Still sitting on the Berserker Greaves as well as double longsword. Very close to Cholcho's items. The only thing that separates the two is Uzi does have an extra dagger. In comparison to the Cole and the longsword, that's the difference between RNG and TOP's 80 carries. So they're not out of this one. TOP are still in a comfortable spot. But with
the bottom lane, yes.
Yeah, but with top lane falling behind so far, that's a side of the map that RNG completely control. Kasa is dominating the river at the moment. You can't really step over towards RNG's side of the map. And as we alluded towards earlier, Xiaohu is controlling mid lane. He's not dominating Corn in that mid lane. He's not shutting him down by any means. But definitely keeping him back, keeping him behind his turret, making sure he can't go anywhere. And Galio can just rotate wherever he wants to.
He's cozy, he's scaling up as well, and once he hits those level 6, has the ultimate, can go bottom lane, that's exactly where he needs to be. So that's what you're looking at here. RNG in a pretty comfortable position overall. It's a Ghost Blade of the choice, item of choice in the top lane as well. Let me going offensive in his build. I like the adaptations from Moyi, however, going towards the Seeker's Arm Guard, stacking some flat armor to go against what is the lethality build. Ghost Blade helps a lot though.
The early boots helps him out too. I mean, cooldown reduction for his summoners, cooldown reduction for his abilities as well.
And just general mobility against the Aatrox. You want to dodge out on the combo for certain.
It's a lot of what you want. Xiaohu getting jumped on here by Corn. XX here as well. Vanguard's Edge going to lock him in place here. Disarm for now. Stun comes through. Kasa flashing into the fight as well. They're going to try and lock him down. Great ultimate coming out from Kasa. It's going to keep him alive a little bit longer. Galio jumps in, gets the big heal, but Corn picks up the first one. He will fall to Xiaohu. Let Me joins the fight as well. It is ripping through Chocho. Great lockdown towards Let Me. Will get knocked down. Meanwhile, Uzi starting this fight as well. Let Me in trouble. Forced to dash away. Trying to flash over the wall as well. Chocho going to jump in. Good save coming out from Ming. Keeps his top laner alive, but it's TOP that come out on top in this team fight.
Yeah, TOP actually win the trade overall. Uzi's still in a very confident position, trying to press forwards, Ming nearby. But RNG are the ones who get preyed upon by an aggressive decision from Corn, and from XX being just around the corner as that decision is made. Things looking a little bit more promising for them after such a dire start is exactly what they were after.
I like the decision-making coming out from TOP. I like the follow-up that came out from TOP as well. RNG tried to hold on, but they played that quite well.
And the awkward part about that fight, you'll most likely see it in the replay as well, is the decision from Caster to use the ultimate. It's one of the hardest things to do as a Kindred, is do I assassinate the person and risk my ally dying? Or do I use the ultimate and ensure that we'll both stay alive and prolong the fight further? So that's what you'll see here between Xiaohu and Korn. They're chunking each other out. Caster comes in, he makes the decision to use the ultimate instead of going for the kill. And I believe that was the correct choice. Xiaohu then says, I will ult, but the timing was a little bit too early from Xiaohu. And by doing that, he used all of his combo. They'll get Korn, but he will ultimately die for that instead of using it for CC afterwards. Cat with a sick Braum ultimate on the backside as well will be what it takes to prevent Uzi and Ming from getting into the fray and buys TOP a little bit more time. Not for a kill, though.
Great shield coming out from Cat as well, just denies all the feathers coming out from Uzi. He still steps forward here. Even amongst 4 champions, Uzi's still not afraid to go toe-to-toe, and he's going for it again. Chocho taking so much damage, ultimate thrown out by Uzi. Easy kill.
Ignite goes on Ming as well from Cat, perhaps trying to catch him while he was tanking the turret. XX nearby to defend and to save the turret from falling for the moment, but it's temporary.
That's scary. Uzi has 3 kills. Storm Razor already complete, level 2 boosts. 20 CS up over Chocho as well.
Yeah, I don't really think there's any way out here for TOP's 2v2 in the bottom lane.
And we also got to see the cute interaction between Vladimir as well as Kindred there. We saw the Galio try to prolong the fight and make use of the Kindred ultimate. But as soon as the Kindred ultimate was placed down and Moyu joined the fight, throws out his own Hemoplague. And with that, RNG, yes, they heal up through Kindred's ultimate, but die eventually. That's going to pop, going to deal enough damage.
It is one of those double-edged swords of an ability that can be used. And Vladimir, whilst the Kindred could potentially counter it by using his ultimate after the Hemoplague, if you use the Hemoplague on some healthy targets inside it, you'll be able to deal increased damage. And so will your allies during that time to chunk them out while they're inside that ultimate. So always the double-edged sword, has to be used brilliantly. And we have seen teams like RNG lose with the Kindred, even if she was fed. This time around, it's Uzi that has all of the kills, all of the gold, and my expectations are still heavily weaving towards the Uzi's about to pop off narrative, that's for certain.
He's got the items to do so. He's got the kills to do so. He has the support to do so as well. Caster's still making his way down towards bottom side of the map. Galio is here as well. This is going to be a hard force come out from RNG. Seems Chocho already used his ultimate, trying to clear this wave. Successfully does so. Uzi tanks a lot of these turret shots, and Letme's here too. You've got to be kidding me. Everybody has moved down to the bottom lane. Chocho not long for this world. Cat's going to be taken down as well. Uzi not even a part of that fight. They ripped through the first turret, and a big play coming out from RNG.
The best thing TOP can do is go towards the Rift Herald, so they take that one down. They get some damage on the top lane turret, but I don't even know if they'll get the kill on the turret itself. And maybe they summon the Herald in the middle lane and try and get a 2-for-2 type of trade. But they already lost their bottom lane. They are so far behind in tempo for that trade at all. RNG just come out leaps and bounds ahead at 15 minutes in.
Me too. Uzi's back. You can see who the captain is now. Rift Herald gets thrown towards top side of the map, so TOP are going to try and make a trade. They'll get 1 turret for the 2 that are picked up by RNG. I doubt that this Rift Herald will be able to make a second charge, as Xiaohu's going to rotate up there.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Shelly has had her run in this game, so he's going to have to call that one a day, head back to the Void. And TOP, you mentioned it, it's only the 1-for-2 trade in terms of turrets and the kills that went to RNG, and most of them going to Uzi usually. Not this time around, however.
I love how Uzi just subbed in this game, but he's already higher ranked than anyone else in the match.
Yeah, I think he like started Challenger. That's expensive.
Yeah, Xiaohu's been sitting on Master for some time. Poor Letme just gets subbed in after game 2. He's still on plat. It's like, guys, Caster as well, still on gold.
And for those of you joining us that don't actually know what those are, they're rankings for fan donations.
That's their actual rankings in solo queue.
Don't listen to Fish. Fans choose to donate on different platforms and websites for their favorite player. The player goes up in ranks. Moyu caught out of position.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later because Moyu is caught out of position. Knocked backwards into the team. Forced to flash away. Good healing coming out. Protobell to dodge away from the body slam.
Uzi in trouble.
Lots of trouble here as well because Chocho's collapsed. Great flash come out for Uzi. How does the king keep making plays like this? Game after game, time after time. Uzi is still alive and he's still racking up frags. RNG are able to ace TOP.
And they go towards the second Infernal of the game as well. That's a 17-minute ace. It is 14-3 in kills. RNG just growing that lead further and further, and feels like nobody can stop them whatsoever. Uzi is a man on a mission. He will carry his team all the way to the finals if he gets his say. And this is the first stepping stone
That was beautiful coming out from RNG's AD carry, caught in a sticky situation. Waits and waits and waits and still finds time to come out. Meanwhile, the rest of RNG doing absolutely everything to not only keep him safe, but win the back half of that fight.
And it looks pretty rough here for Uzi once he's caught out. I believe it's the Varus ultimate that locks him down on the backside of this one. And Cat, of course, trying to play defense and do the damage he can. So all of that CC combo, all right, Uzi's done. But then he flashes behind the Vladimir. Whilst disengaging from Chocho and Cat, is able to lock down the third player simultaneously. It's brilliant from Uzi. Caster, of course, on the top side is able to kite out Korn. And Ming's able to secure that one.
It's not just the flash to get behind him, but it was as he was ripping his feathers back from the ultimate. That was enough to lock down Vladimir. Big play coming out from Uzi, big play coming out from RNG in general. We talked about Casa, you know, kiting away from Korn, but we also had Let Me throughout that fight in such a good position.
And they are so ready to go, RNG. Let Me's second item of choice is the Black Cleaver, so going to augment his team's damage output. He's got a Kindred and he's got a Zaya that'll be complemented by having that item purchased as well. And so Let Me, he's far enough ahead that that Black Cleaver will help him in the side lane, but he's also far enough ahead that if he groups, the rest of RNG benefit from him as well. And they are at that point in the game where they are just going to dive. And I don't think there's anything TOP can really do about that.
Their team composition, Rusty, means that RNG can do it as well. Everybody packs a punch. And for what Ming doesn't have in damage, he makes up for an item. Zeke's Harbinger being picked up nice and early, making sure that Uzi's even more buffed up going into these fights.
I don't think we're going to get the 20-minute TOP Baron in game number 3 here. I don't know if they'll even get access to the pit.
Yeah, that's a 7,000 goal lead for RNG just 19 minutes into the match, Rusty.
0-8-0 is the scoreline of the bottom lane so far as well. And you want to speak towards changes in styles. But Abel wasn't the problem. We know who the solution definitely is. And for TOP, they have gone back towards the AD carries. They are looking decent through that position, but not in this one, as they've met their match.
Great laugh, Changmao. All the actions kind of die down though. RNG have picked up lots of objectives after the last few explosive fights. 20 minutes hit, and Baron is going to spawn.
And that's because the only objective they can really look towards is the Baron. Yep. Pretty much everything else has been taken, so they'll take their chance with the one remaining big objective.
That's very curious coming out from Let Me. He's not pushing the wave.
He's letting it freeze.
He's letting it freeze. He has enough minions to force a freeze, and Moyu can't go anywhere to farm. There's no Krugs, there's no Raptors, there's actually nothing for Vladimir to take.
It feels like almost an insult to injury type of decision there from Let Me as well. It's a good choice because RNG get control on the Baron. And the second Vladimir is seen as well, they could maybe rotate over. Which
is what they do. They rotate over to get positional advantage. Oh my goodness, Chocho just got knocked back into that fight. Double kill being picked up by Xiaohu. Korn's gonna try and jump back in, looking for a kill towards Ming Makasa. Will keep him alive for now. Drunken Rage gets him some health backwards, and Korn gets locked down as Casa gets the third kill. And you bet that's gonna be Baron picked up by RNG.
And right on cue, 20 minutes and 50 seconds. The picks are secured. They don't even need their top laner to come down as well. Moyu no teleport. X is in the area, but he's going to get zoned away by Ming. So now suddenly Ming in trouble, but RNG are looking at Baron.
Yeah, that's the second time that Ming has been in trouble inside of this skirmish, but Let Me finds a flank on top of XX, dashes over this wall, will get slowed down, but just chased through. Ming gets revenge at the end of the day. 4 kills total going to RNG. They pick up Baron buff as well. They break open this game. They are 10,000 gold ahead, 21 minutes into this match.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a full-on miracle and maybe even 2 or 3 of them to bring TOP back in this game at all. Ming's ultimate here is fantastic.
Oh!
Knocks Chocho. He hits the perfect angle as well. Doesn't even knock him into the wall next to it. Just brings him on top of the Galio and on top of Caster for the DPS. Korn comes in, thinks he might have an opportunity to get a pick. Has no choice but to turn around because he was caught and doesn't quite find the mark, tragically for him. But at the same time, RNG don't give him that chance.
No. RNG have now stuck Let Me in the bottom lane to deal with Moyu. There's nothing that Vladimir can really do against this Aatrox for the moment. He has not even gone back to base to buy just yet, Rusty. Let Me is still sitting on a ton of gold.
Yeah, I'd say he could. Probably go back and shop and spend all that money. I don't think it matters too much, honestly. He's even equal with his opponent in items. Not ahead in gold value of those items as well.
The rest of RNG also rank up enough for the entire squad of RNG to hit Master Tier. closer and closer towards Challenger.
No, they
Is
really
RNG
just
going to push towards mid lane. They take down mid lane outer turret, sorry, inner turret, making their way towards the base.
dot the I's, cross the T's, dude. I think that's all that's really left for them. I don't know how TOP defend these. If it's an engage, it's a desperation engage. And I will say, it is the LPL, so they'll do it.
Oh, that's one way to try. Throw everything at Uzi, but he just dodges out of so much. Even Galio ultimate, just to make sure that the king stays safe. Chocho's in trouble. Ming gets that kill. He's still alive somehow as well. Korn stuck inside Caster's ultimate, but he will get knocked out as well. Let Me goes on a rampage. With only XX left alive, this should be the match.
And once again, Ming survives, scrapes through barely, and suddenly they're going to try and maybe dive XX in the process, but this should be game over.
No.
TOP, they were desperate, and they tried, but they could not try hard enough.
Night and day between games 1 and 2, and now game 3. Uzi comes in, Caster comes in, Let Me stays on the squad, and they run straight through TOP, sending RNG to match point.
Confident, clean play coming out of RNG, a crisp performance in game number 3, and it looks like they just put on a clinic against TOP, a side that had some momentum. They were feeling good for themselves. Even in this series, you looked at them and thought maybe they have what it takes. Maybe they can at least take us to game 5. Uzi comes in and presses the biggest red note button you've ever seen in your life. And that's all thrown out the window for TOP. They need to hit the drawing board and start from step 1.
You were absolutely right. Abel was not a problem, but Uzi is the solution. He looked so good in the bottom lane. There was nothing that TOP could throw at him that would phase him. All the way from a level 2 Sejuani gank down to team fights where every single ability was going his way.
And if you ask me, what do you do in the next game for TOP? What do you do when your back's against the wall to keep yourself in this series? I think you go back to what worked. Moyu was playing very well when he was given the Camille. I think there's too much respect perhaps given to the bottom lane of Uzi and Ming. Rightly so, and I think it's deserved. But you need to have a win condition on the top side, perhaps, if that's the place that you want to go. Give yourself some power. Don't put a Vladimir against an Aatrox.
15,000 gold lead at the end of the game for RNG, and everybody on RNG's squad with over 10,000 damage done to champions, including the support of Gragas.
And Gragas was actually doing a lot of work in that play as well. Doing some big damage, some big Ds, but some big ultimates, and working with Uzi seamlessly in the 2v2.
And it sends RNG to match point to break it down and send us into the next match. Let's send it back to the analyst desk.
Thank you, Mr. Fish. And boy, was that a different RNG to look at. 23 minutes of gameplay. We barely had any gameplay.
Yep. I mean, ultimately, I just love the fact that we got Uzi and Karsa back. Thank you. Thank you. Just
Thank you. Thank you.
Just because early on to the game, it actually looked fairly good for TOP because of the level 2 gank coming in through. And I thought that Vladimir placing an early ward level 1 to catch out Karsa going for blue buff. I was like, okay, TOP, you know, starting off strong and stopping Uzi from getting back into it. But then Karsa's actually just super smart. Goes over the dragon wall so he can actually find a way around Chocho and gets a kill there. And suddenly it's like, okay, the one thing that we said should not happen for TOP and losing the bottom lane to Uzi happened, and it just got snowballed from that point.
Yeah, if you look at the end score, it was 0-12 for the TOP bot lane against the likes of Uzi. And this is just what we were talking about with Uzi in the lineup. The biggest difference, we've seen this in spring as well, is that he gives RNG a focus, a place to go to where they put all their resources in. They're very adept at playing into the bot lane, and they just never let Chocho had a good day. Like, I feel bad for Chocho. I want to do a movie about this, a life of Chocho in this game, you know? And it's just sad to see, but it's great to have RNG come back and play their style.
Yeah, because the early game was still that, you know, what you mentioned, Raz, and then the following skirmish just looked good. You look towards the mid lane, no skirmish is also going well. And it's like, okay, yeah, TOP might be able to get out of the laning phase, be right, or in the bottom lane. As long as you give Uzi any type of resources, he will carry it in the following team fights. So as we take a look at some of these team fights, it was just all about Uzi. You know, you back him into a dark alley, and it's just like, not today. Pulls out 2 pistols, backflips over his opponents and shoots them all down. It's like, this guy is just too good at League of Legends.
Gets hit with a Vladimir ultimate to start, and he can't deal the damage because Cat's literally just holding up a door there. But that play, flashing out of there, getting a snare across, super well played from Uzi to essentially just save himself entirely. He's the bulk of the damage in RNG side, so he needed to keep himself alive, what was a hectic team fight. So just individually coming out ahead.
That play was absolutely insane. He takes 2 ultimates to the face, dodges out on the piercing arrow at the last possible second, and then gets a double stun into a triple taunt from Galio. You can just see, like, RNG, all of their eyes are around Uzi. They know when to pick up what he's left down and just finish up the fight from there. So, you know, all hail the king.
It's just, I mean, even though Abel is mechanically obviously very good, it's just you also have the learning phase there, and it's just like no matter what you give Uzi, you know, is going to be resources that are probably going to be amplified. You know, when you look at his damage to gold ratios, he always comes out ahead of like 100% usually as well, so everything is going to be amplified coming out of Uzi. This is our final fight of the game right here.
And I think this game, because at this point of the fight, how do you even get down towards like a dive onto Uzi because he still has his ultimate, and then there's Galio. Exactly. So this team fight was essentially just the result of what was a disastrous early game for TOP. And what amplified it was not only because Chocho ended up dying really early on when they had an advantage because of XX's gank, but they didn't have the necessary defensive wards to catch out Kindred coming through. Also, the top lane matchup, because remember, XX has focused towards the bottom side of the map, that he was essentially all-inning there. While the Vladimir, you're not going to be ganking the Aatrox in the Vladimir matchup. You don't have enough sustained damage, and you're hoping that the Aatrox pushes in completely. He was bullying Vladimir. That was such a bad lane for him, and it was essentially now at that point, 13 minutes in, your Varus is 0-4. Top lane's having a bad time. You just don't have a lane that you can play through reliably. And if you try to play through mid, which they ended up trying to do afterwards, not possible because Galio is just too much of a brute.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing about the in-game strategy coming in from RNG, that they're splitting the map up early just to make sure they can isolate Moyu. And I feel like this is going to force XX onto a matchup which entails more risks. If he goes on something like the Sejuani, you know, Karsa is a very big Trundle player. He can reset that play again, go into the top side, make sure you can't play towards Moyu, and then just all in with Uzi on the bot. That's a very hard strategy for TOP to really get out of.
Yeah, Michelle, who's going to take our man of the match coming into our third game here. So again, on this Galio play, just super, super strong, getting all those multi-man taunts over and over and over again. And of course, just setting up Uzi for success and all the damage dealers. So, I mean, the Summer Tiger, definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, they tried to go through him. They tried their hardest. I know it's the first day of the NFL, and so a lot of the imagery of just trying to get straight through the brute, you're not going to be able to get through Galio. It's just not possible, especially since RNG so focused, as you said, towards the bottom lane, that the moment doors start getting shut down and there's that one door up and available, and it's the mid lane, they tried their hardest, but you're not going to, he's too strong. He's too powerful. And RNG, at the end of it, we're just having a lot of control wards around it, so he was well protected too.
Yeah, and frankly, that was the story of the game. It was just a brute force win with RNG, using their players, using their talent over TOP. We'll see what they've got left as we head into our match point game. We are going to take a quick break. Join us after this.
让我们把故事传唱下去，继续书写 RNG 的传说。
因为我们刚从亚运回来嘛，然后也有半个多月没一起训练嘛，所以中间版本也有改变一些东西嘛，然后队友磨合的也一起打训练时间也不多嘛，所以就可能给自己的训练时间不多嘛，然后我们自己练新东西啊，还有磨合多多少少还是有一些下降嘛，所以可能就自己没打得特别好吧，所以这次的话就可能想争取更多的时间去练习一些新东西吧。
That context is actually super interesting coming in from Ming, because we were talking about the preparation going at least into Champion Select when they were going up against JD, now here today as well. The fact that, I mean, yeah, half of the team just hasn't been here because Asian Games took a large time of their time in the last month or so.
Yeah, you do have to think about they spend 1 week in practice with the other LPL teams and then another week going to Asian Games and taking medal itself. So that's a lot of time out on 8.15. So essentially they're looking at a 2-patch leap into the future, and that could be a good reason why they're keeping half of their roster still in the practice room.
Yeah, so now the fact that they're utilizing this, what seems like, in terms of just practicing, seeing, because remember, major opponents for RNG, if they were to look ahead, is going to be Rogue Warriors, and of course, if they get past that, it's going to be the finals. So for them, knowing that their ultimate goal is to go to the finals once again, remember, 5 times in a row they were able to make it to the LPL finals. They see that in their paths once again. And so they're just saying, TOP, if you can challenge us in this series, we'll force our cards out there. But for now, you have to be able to at least take that one game.
Yeah, they'll keep it to their chest. For now, we have TOP picking blue side coming into game 2, and we also have Let Me in for Zatai. So no change specifically in the bottom lane. I mean, you see Uzi up there. I know someone else who sees Uzi and looking at former members, Korn in the mid lane. He's just like, apparently I just need at least one win to draw out Uzi. I might just have this entire series. I don't even get to see him.
And I think Korn could use that first pick to really draw Uzi out, because he could go onto the Aurelia pick. We've seen that he's willing to play it blind, and in this meta, there aren't a lot of hard Aurelia counters in lane. They buffed her HP, they buffed her attack. She's much closer to a bruiser right now, and she does better in the matchups that she used to do poorly in. So not a lot of strong counters for Aurelia. Important champion for both sides.
It was a slight change, and of course you're right about the attack, her passive being buffed, and it changed her playstyle. I think the biggest one as well is the Electrocute nerfs coming through, where last series we saw the LeBlanc being picked up against the Aurelia time and again. And though while you can say it changes LeBlanc's trading pattern so she can go in and out a little bit more frequently, I mean in consistent, longer fights, that actually favors the Aurelia. And you'd want the LeBlanc to either set up for the gank or to outright burst her. She cannot have that option. And so it's a little harder in that matchup now for the LeBlanc.
Yeah, Rise of the Aurelia, also Rise of the Urgot, which got banned out in the last set. You can see Let Me on your screen right now. Going into the top lane, though, that being said, Zatai rotated into the mid lane, so we'll see. But Let Me has also been picking up carries himself recently, such as the Akali.
And so that's what I'm looking towards. I want to see if Zatai is willing to pick up, Let Me is willing to pick up the Akali in the top lane. We haven't seen Let Me go mid lane, and so if we're talking about just the laning phase dynamics, in the historically we've just seen, okay, Zatai is not in the game, Xiaohu's going mid. And so I wonder now if that changes anything. Coming back on towards the field, is TOP going to recognize Let Me's there and now look to ban out the Rise, or say, hey, you know what, we'll give you Rise, but now we're more comfortable that we have the Orianna matchup. Last time around, that wasn't the comfort that they had.
One of the big things about Let Me is that this split, he's actually gotten a lot more jungle attention towards the top lane. They constantly go for him for first blood, and he's actually one of the highest sources for first blood, not even the bot lane for RNG. Even when he's playing a tank, they're very careful to give him enough resources to at least get him some semblance of lane priority. So Let Me, for me, this split, he's been the best performing player, the most consistent player on RNG.
And usually you have fans, walling off their faces, but they just got straight walled off by other fans right there. And you can see Let Me, the Ornn player in top lane.
I've seen that meme so much as of late. Walk me through it, Clement, because he's just been playing a lot of Ornn.
All right, so every time there's an Ornn play on Let Me, every RNG fan feels safe in their heart. They know that he can consistently get them their team fights, and he's been wrecking it on that Spellbinder Ornn. One of the biggest plays he's done in Asian games was actually switching to Clarity and then using his ultimate, faking out Faker and Peanut, who was going up there to kill him, and getting that play into his favor. So Ornn's one of the best champions, and he's one of the cornerstones for RNG's team fight success and getting their initiations.
So we'll see what will come out in this one. I really wanted to see Korn go on another assassin, if I'm being honest. If you're going to win this game, if you're going to pick up a win in any way, if you're going to draw out Uzi from the bench, it's probably going to have to be an assassin in the mid lane. All right, guys, we're going to send it over to casters. As you can see, we're in Champions League. Take it away, Fisher and Rusty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pulse, as well as the rest of the analysts on the desk. We're going to get into the second map of the Best of 5 series between TOP as well as RNG. We're just running through the bans really quickly here, Rusty. Akali, Alistar, as well as Swain being taken away by RNG. For the side of TOP, we're going to have Aatrox, Rakan, and Rise being banned out. Kai'Sa is their first pick as their AD carry of choice.
Yeah. They've gone full Uzi, you might even say here. RNG have locked in their Kai'Sa as the first champion of choice. The Rise is the adaptive ban here from the side of TOP. Now they've taken that from Xiaohu. I really like that pick as well. So big fan of this one. From TOP in terms of their bans, I am very curious to see what happens with the picks, because it's Abel playing not Uzi, and their priority went towards the Kai'Sa.
So they pick it up. You were mentioning that you'd expect TOP to try and go towards that Gragas. It seems like RNG are hell-bent on denying that pick from XX. Gragas gets locked in as the first pick again.
Yeah.
On RNG side of the map, Irelia gets locked in as well as the second pick, so the Bruiser being taken away from Korn once again. That could be Letme's champion top side of the map, could be Xiaohu picking it up in the mid lane.
And it is refreshing to see that Chow has moved away from just the Swain. You know, a lot of the mages that exist in League of Legends in the bottom lane are completely removed now. Swain is the one that is a die-hard champion, has managed to stay there for a bit longer than some have been welcome. And Chow is one of the only players that has been bringing that one out consistently. So it's good to see him go towards the Kai'Sa. And now, of course, when you pick a Kai'Sa first, there is one certainty in the rest of your composition. That is crowd control. You will have CC everywhere to empower her further. I'm looking at, you know, Alistar, of course, is banned this time around, but I'm looking at things like that in the support role. Shen is now going to fit that bill, most likely.
Protect the Kai'Sa. Everyone, if they can make sure that Chow stays safe, it's going to be beneficial for TRP. We already saw how good of a match Chow had in game 1 for TRP.
We're still in chance.
You know,
it's all good.
Normally when we see that Intel logo, it means we're going into the game. Not the case. We're just going to have a look.
We're just doing an evil.
We're moving into the second phase of bans here. Rusty, brought to you by Intel.
Absolutely. And in the second bans, we'll see Yasuo removed. So Akali, Yasuo taken away. RNG removing champions from Korn. Last game we saw the Galio and we saw the LeBlanc taken away, but that's not going to be the case. So Korn actually does have mid lane options available for himself, especially in the way of magic damage. You know, it's not going to be just the Orianna.
Yes, he does.
And more in his wheelhouse, let's say. Orianna being a control mage, he looked fine, but it wasn't comfort for him like a LeBlanc would be.
Yeah, it doesn't give him the huge carry potential either. Yes, he can hit those big shockwaves, but he already was hitting those big shockwaves. He needs something that can take down individual members of RNG, start the fights for TOP the same way they were doing it in the early game against RNG.
And I will say that whilst I potentially discredit the Orianna as a choice, it's perfectly viable with a Kai'Sa type composition and with all the crowd control around it. So having an extra shield is something that would be super nice. I am curious to see which direction he goes, and I think with the Zac lock-in, Orianna is now gone from contention completely. I think that's just a little bit too much kill threat from long range onto, you know, a standard control mage with no mobility, so we'll see.
Ooh, but they could just add on to the protection that Kai'Sa gets here, Rusty. If they go towards the Galio, that's a very tanky mid lane champion who, if builds AP, would pack a lot of punch, and it's even more protection for Kai'Sa.
Makes me wonder what's going to be left of their composition, if it's something in the top lane or if it's going to be in the support role. So that's the direction we're looking at now. There's a hover of the Tahm Kench. That would put the Shen in top lane, but they change at the last second. They make it the Camille Galio combo. That's something that is very strong from them. I was expecting potentially even the Jarvan Galio type of combo and a top lane Jarvan, but no. It's the Camille.
Yeah, Camille heading into the top lane for Moyu as well. Not Lies that's playing in this match. XX will pick up the Sejuani heading into the jungle. They were thinking about Tahm Kench for a hot second there. That would have been a very heavy protect the Kai'Sa comp.
Oh.
But you're right, the Galio does synergize very well with Camille, but let me, if he's not on, which was banned against him in this match, Rusty, one of his other signature picks is the Malphite, the rock in the top lane.
My face went Malphite. He's definitely going to be rocking out in the top lane now. So Letme's put his fist down. He said, I am going to carry this one as a tank, and it's not going to be an Ornn. That's for certain. It was banned away, as was the Cho'Gath. But he's still got a deep champion pool. And when it comes to tanks, and whilst it was limited, he'll find something. He finds the Malphite. So a bit of extra engage.
Malphite's had some of his abilities changed quite heavily. The Brutal Strikes have been changed. His Ground Slam's been changed as well. He scales very heavily on armor now. And Malphites are going towards Trinity Force, and going towards the Sunfire Caves as well.
Yeah, along those lines, I believe that he's also very good into the Camille matchup from memory, because you just slam the ground whenever she comes towards you, and it's very hard for her to get those constant passive procs off. You know, press the attack a bit harder to achieve, and consistent damage if you go for Conqueror, even harder to get down and utilize. So whilst the Camille in lane may not be the best matchup, they've got very different roles in team fights.
Even in solo queue, Malphites are running around with Ignite now. That's how much kill pressure he has in lane, that Ignite is almost enough to tip the scales in his favor in a couple of matchups. And Letme is one of those experienced top laners who can use Malphite to his advantage. We've seen him get solo kills in the lane before as a tank. In the team fights, he's a crucial component to the composition that RNG have drafted. I mean, pairing up with the likes of Zac from the jungle, that's a lot of tanks that are diving straight into the back lines and a lot of ways to try and shut down Kai'Sa. They hovered the Tahm Kench for the side of TFP. They went for Camille instead. Now there is no guaranteed way to protect Kai'Sa. It is up to Chow as well as the tanks to actually stop the onslaught of RNG from diving into the backlines.
Yeah, it becomes one of those really big battles of front-to-back type of League of Legends on can you actually execute on those team fights? Can you kill the Kaiser? Or will the flanks come up super clutch? You know, and RNG have already proven that they've got the capabilities of flanks. They've got a Malphite who can teleport, a Zac who can get entry from flanking positions, and a Gragas who can force front-to-back team fights to feel a little bit awkward.
And we could see a little bit more from Corn in this match as well. Yes, he is on Galio, more supportive base champion, but paired with the likes of Camille means he could be a big playmaker for the squad. But let's get on to the Rift for Map 2, the Best of 5 series. We're getting onto the map here, Rusty. Already, you can hear the crowd. RNG in their home stadium for this semi-finals match. So quarterfinals match.
It's a big game. RNG starting 1-0 up. They've got the momentum in a game where you probably say maybe they shouldn't have. The way that TOP controlled the early game, controlled the mid game, actually set themselves up to succeed.
They did.
It's a very similar roster this time around. Of course, Let Me is the change. Let Me is the addition into the mix for RNG. It doesn't change the rest of the map. The one thing you have to look at now is XX is not on the Camille. That's gone towards the top lane. That's more you. XX is on the Sejuani. So I think a bit more confident in his own play. Perhaps he's defaulted to something more safe, but it still works with the composition.
Do you feel like there's ever a scenario where a player would go, okay, XX, I had a horrible game on Camille last match. Please don't give it the champion. If you want to pick it, put it top lane instead. Do you think there's an actual scenario where XX is like, I need something else?
I mean, there's absolutely a chance, right? If you consider that it was a Zinzao to Camille, though, there was chances they kill him. Compositionally, Camille was always the one who was going to die. So I think it could be more a recognition of not going, hey guys, I sucked at this. Don't let me have this again. More of a, what can we pick that would be better while still feeling a similar style? I think that's where they've gone towards here.
There's very early aggression in the bottom lane here, Rusty. Abel taking quite a bit of damage. When Kai'Sa was released, Press the Attack was a niche keystone rune for AD carries. Everyone was going towards Fleet Footwork, but worked very well on Kai'Sa. Not being picked up, instead going now towards the unpopular Fleet Footwork. After the big patches that took place to change how some of these keystone runes worked, a lot of AD carries then went towards Lethal Tempo, went towards Sorcery Tree, went towards Press the Attack instead. But Cholcho picking it up. For this Kai'Sa pick here, seems to really want to work around having that extra mobility, especially in the late game fights, which it seems what TOP will be looking towards.
Yeah, the move speed's nice to have for certain. It's also just that little bit of extra sustain. Of course, it was nerfed on ranged champions, so it's not a significant amount, but that amount does scale up. For me, I look at this item choice, and I kind of hope he goes towards the AD build to make it a little bit more efficient. You know, the AP Kai'Sa doesn't necessarily scale up too much. Actually, it has a 0.5 ratio. I take that back. It's very good on ranged champions because of that. I just realized as I spoke.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good on champions like Kassadin.
Kassadin's the one who benefits the most from it, for sure.
Just because it has that hybrid scaling so much of the current.
It also, stacks of Fleet Footwork scale up with spell usage. So at the same time, you'll be able to get more off if you're a spell-weaving champion, and Kai'Sa is definitely one of those.
It certainly is. Low cooldowns here and there. Very strong in the late games. Has a lot of different build paths that you can go towards as Kai'Sa. You can go towards the Storm Razors first, pick up a Glinsters with that, go towards the very heavy ability power route, which we saw a lot of post-MSI, but a gank to the mid lane. Xiaohu's going to be able to dodge away from XX's Flay and actually gets away alive. Doesn't have to use any of his summoner spells.
Yeah, note that he's got the cleanse, so Xiaohu was never going to flash away there. If something had connected, he'd just cleanse away and walk it out, no problems at all. And that's a worthwhile trade for RNG's mid laner if someone flashed forwards. Now Let Me
does get the slowdown with the Seismic Shard. But Moyu's able to walk away alive. Rocking Comet in the top lane gives Malphite a little bit of extra damage.
Yeah, it certainly does. Helps a lot. And of course, having the Corrupting Potion stacks, most likely Inspiration as his secondary.
Yeah, has to be.
So Time Warp Tonic and things like that available for him, sustaining against his opponent. And that's most likely what happened there. You know, the 3 potions with the Time Warp Tonic compared to just the 1 in the Doran Shield. He gets pushed out, but he'll be okay.
I mean, Malphite's always been such a good champion after his first recall. That's when he ties, kind of evens the fights top side of the map. His biggest problem was sustain. Mana sustain, health sustain, didn't have really good training patterns. The runes completely changed.
Oh, no, he's
but
not.
he hasn't gone towards the tonic. Said bone plating as well as second wind.
He can hear us.
So he's going towards resolve instead. Wants to be a little bit more tanky in this matchup, which kind of makes sense against Moyu. Playing Camille, it's a very aggressive matchup.
Yeah, and against the second wind, a lot of this matchup, when you play it out, you want to keep Malphite's shield down. If you can keep it down, then you can actually trade against him. If the shield is up, he just walks up to you, presses Q, hits the comet, and walks away, no problems at all, wins the trade. So really, you have to be either consistent in your damage output or not at all.
It refreshes every 10 seconds, but he has to be out of combat from opponents.
With champions, right?
No,
just
so
in general.
as long as he's taking damage, it will not reset. So if a minion hits him, tough luck, buddy. So you kind of want to be forcing these fights constantly. But you'd have to think about it. It scales so well with Malphite that if you're not constantly in a fight against him, he's healing for almost 10% of his hit points every single time you give him a 10-second window.
Now, there's a moment where TOP may be looking. The thing is, I don't think this is a look at a dive. It's super risky to do. Look at where they are at the turret as well. And he'll be getting closer and closer to the level 6 stage. There he is. This dive, if they commit to this, requires a Galio at the bare minimum, in my opinion, to make this work.
And Korn made that rotation looking towards the top side of the map, but it's just so difficult to pull off. Bear in mind that Let Me is not very tanky at the moment. He's got a Dark Seal as well as a Ruby Crystal.
See
That's
if he
it.
steps up here. It's definitely likely. They are on.
They jump on top of him. Let Me's going to take some damage to start this one. Stun locked by them, taking a lot of damage from TOP, but no summoners were used. No force coming out from either side. Let Me stays alive.
Yeah, they can't afford to dive him. Again, the Malphite ultimate would be there, and you'd most likely be dying in that trade. So they take the health advantage. This buys control of the lane 100% to Moyu, so that's a nice-to-have thing. And at first I thought maybe he was counter-ganking, so that's the taunt in the bottom lane.
Yeah, great taunt in the bottom lane. Ming's going to get the aftershock damage on towards Chol. They turn back towards Cat. Good trades coming out from RNG here. Very nice use of the dodge zone coming out from Cat, baiting RNG to continue attacking him. And actually, he's actually waiting top side of the map, going for a gank against Moyu. Doesn't get the second knock up, but does get the knock back. And First Blood is going to go towards the side of Malasyangwo.
Even cancelling the hook shot. Well done here from the side of RNG. Let Me keeping the ultimate for that entire time. You'd have to feel like something was up there if you were Moyu in the top lane. He was in a position where he was constantly pushed. He was harassing his opponent. He was trying to keep him down, but he used the ultimate already. And that's your way to dodge a Malphite ultimate even, if you're able to outplay that one. So it's gone. They find their moment, and that is just a dead Camille.
You have to remember how difficult of an ability it is in general to try and pick up. That's going to deny so many minions away from Moyu.
There's no teleport, so he's not going to get there for the cannon.
No.
That's the one that'll hurt the most for him. And we'll get to see the fight again in the top lane. All Let Me has to do is press his outplay button, the modern-day Syndra. And it's very easy to lock them down. The CC combo's there. Note that Moyu had flash, and he was using the hook shot, but he had no way out.
Modern-day Syndra? Come on,
yeah,
I mean, like, Malphite is basically the one of the components of Bronze Zodia. You can't say this is modern day. This is the old school outplay button coming out from Let Me. But you have to remember how difficult it is of an ability to dodge out. That was very close range against Moyu as well. I believe they did some testing on Wild Turtle was a few years back on how fast he can react to abilities like that, and it's just near impossible. Players are getting better at it.
Usually you have to be ready to make the play
you need
to actually dodge it. If you know that a Malphite's coming, then you'll be able to flash a bit more successfully because you can look for things like that. But
and that's just flash, right? Flash is instant.
Yeah.
Anything else is going to take a near miracle to try and dodge. Moyu is no way getting away with a hook shot unless he, predicts or preempts the ultimate coming out from Let Me.
Yeah, and Zach was the one that cancelled that as well. So we do get ourselves a kill in the top lane. RNG with the first blood. So when you look at the state of this game, if you compare it to game number 1, very different. It's not just slow in the early game. It's slow with RNG holding the fort, not losing all of their lanes by any means, just going even.
Doesn't swing the tides of the fight too heavily in RNG's favor top side of the map. It was a kill that went to Zach, so Let Me doesn't pick it up, and he is still behind by a sizable amount of CS, about 2 waves here or there, 2 to 3 waves in favor of Moyu at the moment. Going towards the Barmy Cinder first, so Sunfire Cape should be the first pick up here for Let Me, not opting to rush the Trinity Force and try and fight Moyu in this lane.
First side of the Trinity Force would be a dangerous game that you would be playing for certain. You want to go towards those tanky items first, build yourself up. And when you are unkillable, you go for the jewels. It's the best way to take them out.
You know, see, Moyu is still able to command this lane. There's nothing much that Let Me can really do. Forced to farm close towards his turret. One trade pattern coming up from Moyu. Knocks Let Me down to just under half of his hit points, and that's through his passive as well. You'll see how far back Letme's playing, sacrificing some of his CS, waiting for that passer to come back up.
LXG now on the bottom side as well, potentially looking as level 7, so...
Two things happening. Korn was looking to try and go towards top side of the map as well, but Xiaohu does rotate to look for this fight. Taunt comes through, good damage coming out from Korn, and although Xiaohu threw a lot back at him, the trade does go in favor of Galio. Blue buff was available on top of that. MLXG is still waiting inside this push. Cat's going to try and walk in, but they jump towards Cho instead. Now trying to lock down Cat.
Oh,
Taunt's
no.
not good. The knockback's not good either from MLXG.
You just go on Cat in that situation.
Yeah,
and like, yes, he has a taunt. Maybe he can flash away. You still just take the damage. The risk of covering all of that extra distance onto a Kaiser who has the move speed active. That was a flash.
Yeah, MLXG looking for this fight. Doesn't get the kidnap on towards XX, but forces the flash at least out of Sejuani.
It just becomes a flash trade between junglers in the end. Of course, the threat of engage further from RNG is what forces the response here from XX. At the end of the day, the scuttle is what he wins. So a bit of extra gold into the pockets of MLXG, but boy, that felt like a lot.
But still, the gank at the bottom lane, not the best case scenario coming out for RNG. Korn is now looking to see if he can go towards top side map. He's being locked down by the ultimate coming out from Moyu. Galio jumps in as well. He's tanking up the turret, gets the uppercut, but Letme's going to try and flash away from this one. Low sweep will be enough. Moyu gets the kill, and they finally execute that gank top lane.
Xiaohu looking, so is MLXG. They may want to counter the fight here. Shen's coming in for you.
Shen is going to come in. Rubber hands don't connect. Cat is here for the taunt. Locks down MLXG. Taunt's going to come out to both players. Vanguard's edge being thrown out by Xiaohu. Dashes over towards one. Moyu taking a lot of damage. They pop. Zach's passive. XX is here. They get the kill on towards Camille. Xiaohu's going to try and flash back towards the turret. MLXG does go down, and TOP are running through RNG on the top side of the map. Xiaohu's got nowhere to go. Top flash is good and clean coming out from TOP.
And it is squeaky out of the TOP roster. Teleport comes in from Let Me, and it's just going to be defense of the turret. So once again, TOP, they'll start this one off with a bang. They found their moment. And that moment was the combo of the team composition. That's going to hit him, by the way.
Let's go!
I don't know if that's the noise it makes. It'll slow him down. I don't think we're at the moment.
Hey.
It's still there. Don't worry.
What? No, it's not. It's gone.
All right. I mean, that's,
you lied to me.
Really disappointing.
It disappeared.
It's submerged. It'll come back in a minute. Either way, the fight went in favor of Timmy. That was very distracting. There's good stuff from them. Their combo, that thing you saw from them, the Galio and the Camille, will happen again. And it may not be onto the Malphite next time, so that's the thing you have to keep your eyes on. Top lane's doing well. There's a lot of damage threat here, and Moyu doesn't actually take the turret aggro. He ults and locks him in place, waits for the Galio to come in before he initiates the combo. We're back top.
Oh no, Let Me being ganked again. XX gets into the top lane. Kidnap's going to bring it back towards turret range. XX will tank this one up. But nobody else from RNG is close towards top side of the map. They can't help out. So we don't see the combo, Rusty, but TOP are targeting this Malphite in the top lane.
And for me, whilst it's targeting Malphite, it's also about getting the Camille ahead. He is a big part of their compositional success. And a lot of the comp, whilst it's getting towards Cho in the late game, having the Kaiser be a big carry, a second threat is so important for them. And he is the second threat. You know that if Cho gets items, he'll be big. But if you can get Moyu there sooner, that mid-game bridging point of a Trinity Force as well, he'll one-hit Abel.
There's a lot more to it as well. Teleport got nerfed a few patches ago. It's on a much longer cooldown now. Let Me is going to be relying on his teleport throughout the mid-game. He needs that to get into side lanes. He needs that to get back into the bottom side of the map. He needs that if he keeps getting ganked as well, so he can get back into his own lane. Moyu's going to push wave after wave into this turret. He's going to take first turret for himself. Now Let Me can't even take him in a one-on-one. He can't rotate the side lanes effectively. He's at a teleport disadvantage. This is really good priority coming out from TOP. In fact, they picked up a 2,500 gold lead just from forcing on the top side of the map alone.
And they get that first turret solo to Moyu as well, so that 600 gold into the kitty. Feeling real good for himself, getting close to that item spike. The Phage is done. With that first turret gone, however, you have to look at TOP and say what's next for them. Because they've got the turret, but if you put Moyu back up into that lane to stay there and even look at it inner, he's very deep. He needs supervision from the rest of his team to actually protect him, and that opens up the bottom as a weak point on the map. I think you have to now change where that strong area on the map is going to be. But I wonder if lane swapping's even the solution to that, having a Shen and a Kaiser in the top side.
If history repeats itself, Rusty, what's going to happen next is RNG are going to come out with an RKO out of nowhere. They're just going to hit TOP with something random, and it's going to be quite difficult for them to fight back. TOP need to find a way to stop that from happening, in my opinion. if RNG find a fight, find the pick first, they will snowball out of control. We've seen RNG able to do this against multiple teams. And that's not just talking about this set. Already in set 1, that happened. RNG found a couple of fights, snowballed out of control.
Yeah, I mean, in a game they shouldn't have won.
True.
They absolutely did RNG just by being that good as a team and individually to make the big plays. One thing that's missing from RNG this time around is the Rise and the Xin Zhao combo. Yep. So their engage is let me. And I think that's a big thing that TOP do have as a saving grace for themselves. If they can initiate any kind of split push, if it's 4-1 and Camille can just hold the Malphite, then they'll be very cozy as a team composition. The change here, however, is MLXG is on Zac. MLXG's engage patterns are very sporadic. They're hard to predict. They're hard to actually prevent. And a Sejuani can actually cancel a Zac's elastic slingshot if he is in position to just charge at that.
Yep,
but you have to know the angle.
It's another one of those things where if you're ready for it, you can stop it. And it's not too hard to stop it. But if MLXG catches you by surprise, which it's MLXG, he's always going to catch you by surprise once or twice to the map. It is difficult.
They just caught the Aurelia shopping here, so they're going to get a full charge off. That may be the turret.
That's dead. Turret's going to
go
down.
The rest of RNG, though, they were grouping up around the area, so if it didn't go down in that one charge, they may have gone for the engage. I don't think they would have got there in time this time. Second charge to boot.
And they're going to go for a fight as well. MLXG in a lot of trouble. Taunt's going to connect. Cholcho gets that kill. Korn was looking to try and see if he can go forward as well. Abel's going to be able to knock back XX.
No
Korn
summoners.
Waiting for the taunt. Has flash available, but great stun. Xiaohu going to disengage. Cholcho does tag him with the ultimate. Oh, but Moyu just flying out of nowhere. TOP going to be able to take down Abel, so that's 2 kills going over the way of TOP.
Yeah, the Camille's able to assassinate him. No teleport used by Moyu as well, so he's still going to be able to side lane, no problems. You're looking at the bot lane outer turret being threatened, the mid lane inner turret being threatened simultaneously, and Xiaohu, even after such a great stun, he's not going to be able to do all of that work in multiple lanes, and so they are going to have to lose an objective, you would imagine. Well done from TOP.
Very well done from TOP, taking it to RNG in game 2. Once again, the early game or mid game has gone in favor of TOP. Korn's going to get his recall stop. He's going to be pretty annoyed by that, but let's take a look at that again because they reacted to this. They disengaged first and then turned around. Abel
But the thing is, like, I don't even know if it's Abel out of position or all of RNG just being a little bit silly with their positioning. You know, that Gragas cast, whilst it does knock XX onto Abel, that's really unfortunate. Might have been able to survive. It's the part before that where they walk through mid, through the river, where they have control of the river but not the lanes themselves. Good flash, of course, from Moyu at the end. Secures himself the kill. But you have to look before the fight happens, because that wasn't a fight, that was a massacre, and it was one that TOP would happily take, because RNG came towards them.
Very sloppy plays coming out from RNG. They tried to punish TOP for their aggressive use of Rift Herald. Doesn't work out. TOP played the early and mid-game macro game very strong. They follow up on the team fights this time even stronger. That's something that TOP did not have in the last match. They were getting picks against RNG, but when it came to proper skirmishes, when it came to team fights, RNG were ahead. The gold spoke for itself. 6,000 gold ahead for TOP. RNG was still 8-3. They were still ahead in kills by an entire ace. This time round, much stronger coming out from TOP. Much better in this match. Let's see if they can follow through. Because Letme's been on an island this entire time. He's been stuck underneath his turret. Moyu's been pushing in quite aggressively. Now he does have teleport for himself, so we could see him try and start a fight. TOP,
looking.
They're going to try and start a fight here. Cat going to take some damage. Rubber Hands not going to connect just yet. Galio going to try and join the fight, but Stopwatch was burnt by Cat just to keep himself alive for a little bit longer. XX is waiting behind this turret, but the turret is still fairly healthy at the moment.
Yeah, it made you wonder if they would consider diving. Cat not having the stopwatch may have been a concern for them, but he did have the ultimate, so there was a chance. And then you look towards the top laners. Both have teleport, of course, so both are potentially able to come into the fight. And I think that's where TOP said, maybe not this time. If we dive that Malphite, we give RNG an opportunity. That's an opportunity they choose not to take. Instead, they're just going to continue that slow snowball where that lead of about 4,000, maybe it stretches up to 4.5, maybe to 5, and keeps growing that way up until the Baron is alive, and that may be their big bet.
Well, we just saw then that 71% of the fans think that this will go in the way of RNG. I'm actually surprised that that number is not a lot higher. TOP have had a good run, but it's RNG. This is the beloved team of China at the moment.
It's not RNG with Uzi playing.
It's true.
It's not the full RNG roster. I would even say that Kasa may be a better matchup into XX as well.
Why so?
In terms of style. Now, Kasa's much more cerebral and likes to find his opposing jump. I mean, MLXG is just a risk. And it's not a bad risk at times, but he is a risk.
How does that help in the matchup against XX? How does the cerebral style coming out from Casa allow him to go better against XX than MLXG's
XX
Chaos?
is known as the MVP of the team for the most part. You know, he's been racking up a lot of those, but also if he's doing well, a lot of their success hinges on his back. He's had very good Gragas plays. It's actually a champion that's high priority for or against him by their opponents. And I think if you give him any kind of advantages, then suddenly, you know, he could snowball the game out for his team. And Casa's biggest strength being able to track and find his opposing jungler, and whether it's preventative or not, whether it's a counterplay, I think Casa does that a little bit better than MLXG. So that's why I think the matchup may be in Casa's favor. And of course, remember that this is game 2 of a best of 5, so there's always a chance we get them out if TOP can win.
Quite a few surprises. I mean, Uzi not starting in playoffs is an interesting one coming out from RNG. Normally when it comes to VODS playoffs, that's when Uzi's playing every single match for the squad. Swapping out Let Me and Satai is nothing unknown. MLXG playing both matches. What would be the squad if you went in the finals for RNG right now? If they made it all the way to the finals, what's the 5-man squad you start with, Rusty?
The one that won MSI, most likely. Would still be the same squad. I think Let Me's had a fantastic split for himself, and I prefer Casa's style working with Uzi, and Eddie carries it back, so why not go back to the one that worked for you before?
Any speculation, though, as to why Abel has been starting for the last 2 maps at least?
I mean, there's very fair speculation to say that Uzi is still feeling injuries, so any break you can give him would be amazing. I also think that they've been playing a lot of League of Legends, so any chance that you can put Abel in and give Uzi a small rest would be very much appreciated for him. And it's a best of 5, so why not bring something different in? And Abel was one of the few players that could bring in different roles in the bottom lane position back before it was even meta. He was playing Yasuo AD carry.
He was number 1.
He was the one who revolutionized a big part of that. So he's always on the pulse, and you saw his mechanics in that game number 1, especially once you get to late game. This is a kid on fire.
Could be a big spanner in the works as well. We've seen the early game go really heavily in favor of Cholcho, especially in map 1. 40 odd CS ahead of Abel, and it's kind of been Abel's story whenever he played for RNG. From time to time he'd fall behind in the lane, but late game hits and he shows that he's perfectly strong in that part of the map. In this case, though, what if they do bring it in Uzi for game 3 or game 4, and suddenly that early game where Cholcho had so much strength could be completely taken away?
I mean, that's the first part that they have to do here, TOP. You want to get Uzi out, you got to beat the current roster. Otherwise, you're not even going to get the real raid boss out first. This is phase 1 of the raid boss. They haven't been able to get that victory yet.
You don't get to take on the king till you take down his squire. Probably not how any of medieval history goes, but yeah.
Close enough. We'll just say that was how it worked. Now, Cloud Dragon did, of course, go over to TOP. I'll be able to lock that one down. MLXG soloed out the first Cloud, so there's 2 Clouds on the map and an Ocean coming up next. And a lot of offensive style dragons, and a 28-minute Ocean Dragon is not ideal for any team. It is more just a dragon that has to be taken for the Elder to spawn afterwards.
Give me another Cloud at that point. Make me run faster.
Yeah.
You can see a Warlock's armor being picked up by MLXG, comboing with the Cinderhawk jungle completed item. Not sure if he's at 3,000 hit points. He might have been just above at the moment.
We haven't clicked him, so I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
what we do have to look at now is the Baron buff, and as I go to say that, they immediately started. It's been spotted on Vision as well, RNG. They'll get here in time.
2 games in a row, TOP have gone back towards their Dan gaming strategies. Channel Dan, let's go. 20-minute Baron never fails, right? Right?
MLXG also just cancelled his charge on Vision. Makes you wonder if they were ever going to consider that, but they'll back away. There is no harm in trying. At 20 minutes, if you find a chance, of course, it's 23, so you've even got extra damage there potentially. Kaizen out, 2 done items.
The control ward being placed down by RNG is crucial, though. I mean, the blue trinkets, they can be stopped by control wards, but control wards give you that vision.
They're just going again. Ming does have a control ward. He also has 2 regular wards he can place down. MLXG, you can barely see him, but he's in range. And they'll never see him coming as well. Now, XX, if he stands in the correct position, could maybe cancel the jump. Zach is in.
Zach's going to jump in first. MLXG's inside the pit. 2,000 hit points on Baron. They take him down into towards his passive nice and early. Can they spike this Baron in time before he comes back up? Oh, miss spike coming out from XX. Gragas is going to take it. RNG have stolen Baron, but the fight is still going in favor of TOP. Cholcho is trying to kite this one out. TOP fight forward, push on towards the red buff. Moyu does get tagged. Xiaohu is forced to retreat, but the winds of war are going to come out, and Cat comes in with the shadow dash. Fight goes to TOP.
The one thing that tarnishes the record for TOP was the smite at about 1,000 HP. They're not going to lock that one down. Maybe he thought that MLXG could smite while in Bloblets. We'll never know the answer to that one, but the burst was not timed well. TOP still get the fight, however. They get a tower on the backside of it, and they did get 4 kills. Abel, the only person left, I believe, with the Baron buff standing. Still a major victory for TOP, but it could have been so much sweeter if they'd secured that Baron.
Could have been, but they stuck to their play. Watch how they burst down MLXG and immediately turn towards the Baron.
And Moyu was zoning the rest of them as well. Ming, I believe, steals this with just a Q. And you'll see the smite coming across in a hot second. And there's still so much health
right
there.
here.
700. It looks like it did no damage.
Didn't do much, but we are very early into the match as well, so Smite's not going to be doing the 800.
Yeah, but it actually looked like it did nothing.
Yeah. Better ruling Smite, but he does fall down afterwards. TOP do win this team fight. Was stolen away by a Q that came out from Ming. He had used his ultimate earlier on.
Abel also gets out quite cleanly for himself as well, using the ultimate after the jump was cancelled by Camille. So, end of the day, he'll get out alive, and that does give them the single Baron.
But they still fall really far behind here. They're 8,000 gold behind TOP. This is a very scary situation now. If you're RNG, you're going to say, 2 games in a row, we've lost the early game. And mid-game is where we had to fight
they're
back.
engaging bottom. Zach, no elastic slingshot.
It's not looking too good. Xiaohu is going to get locked down. Throws at the Vanguard's edge, though. Moyu taking a lot of damage. Stopwatch is going to keep him alive, and Galio will jump in to keep him safe. Xiaohu finds some fancy footwork to get out of that fight, but TOP use their combo and don't get a pick for it.
Yeah, nice dash away to safety. Moyu goes back to base, and remember that he has got the teleport, so he'll be able to come back in. But now the siege from TOP starts into a Baron buff, and is a little bit harder to do. They're not able to 1-3-1. They're not side laning. RNG were the ones also considering going towards the side lane and engage. TOP were just the ones who said us first. And so everything equalizes, and they won't really get anything in this bottom lane.
It gives RNG that chance, that fighting chance, to find the similar flanks, the similar big plays that we saw from game 1. With Baron buff stopping the push coming out from TOP, RNG can fight on their terms if they choose to. They don't have the teleport from Xiaohu. They don't have the Rise ultimate that Xiaohu had in the last match. But this time they have Let Me and MLXG, who can force fights even easier than what we saw from map 1.
You can see lane assignment-wise, currently Xiaohu is actually the one in the lane of the Camille. I feel like if you're going to start a fight, you need the Malphite nearby just as much as you need the Zac. Teleporting in could be quite delayed, and he doesn't even have that available. So they try and put the best side lane matchup possible. There is a world, of course, where Xiaohu can cancel teleports, so I'm okay with that if they can cancel the TP. But I don't know if this 4-man of RNG does enough damage. That's the concern that you'd have right now. Because in a world where Xiaohu does get a successful side lane and can hold the fort down with Moyu, can they even 4v4 into a very conventional composition of TOP in the 4v4?
There's still some time before we'll see Abel pick up his Infinity Edge, and even then, Tristana is not fully online, right? Brawler's Gloves will help Abel out slightly, will put him up to 80% crit, which is going to be nice from RNG when he gets to that point. There's still some time before they get there. You can already see that Chocho is going towards the very aggressive ability power route for Kai'Sa. Guinsoo's Rageblade, as well as Nash's Tooth. Probably going towards Zhonya's next.
Yeah, most likely towards the Zhonya's. Now, with that AP item build as well, we mentioned the Fleet Footwork still pretty good for him as an option. And they're just going to go get themselves the free Ocean Dragon on the backside of the Baron.
I mean, Fleet Footwork helps out in the sense that going towards AP Kai'Sa, you're not going to have too many ways to actually heal yourself too.
Yeah, you also have the Bloodline usually in the tree, so for what it's worth, lots of healing comes from runes that you don't need to then purchase in items, so you're absolutely correct.
Which is nice, but Banshee's Veil has been picked up by Chocho. I was wrong, not as Zhonya's.
That is weird.
That is weird. I've seen quite a lot of Kai'Sa as their
I
third
respect
item.
it for certain. I think it's good. It's cooldown reduction, it's AP as well, and it's a Banshees that prevents an engage tool from RNG. So if you're against a Malphite, you could go 2 ways. That is a Zhonya's that blocks the damage completely, but puts you in a compromised position. Or you can go Banshees that doesn't let him engage in the first place. You don't have to make the mechanical outplay of pressing Zhonya's where other CC may stop you. So it is a perfectly good choice.
It just makes it that much harder for RNG. Now with the Banshees available, they can't really fight on their terms, which is one of RNG's win conditions here. They have to force fights on their terms, on their turf. With the Banshees, they have to first pop the Banshees, and then go towards Chocho. He's majority of his team's damage as well.
I mean, that's why a lot of this is now going to be suddenly MLXG, maybe not Let Me, going for the initial parts of the engage. MLXG currently even hovering, considering at every possible moment. The threat is enough.
We do get the big item spike though for RNG. Abel has picked up his Infinity Edge. He's also picked up his Brawler's Gloves, so a nice 80% crit chance for him. And then you've got the Zeke's Harbinger being picked up by Mick, adding even more damage to Abel later in these fights.
That's all I'm saying. As we're getting closer and closer to that late game Abel Tristana with 3 and a little bit of items done. Of course, the Brawler's Glove we mentioned this last game being that big spike. Yes, they are snowballed, TOP, and they are very strong. Their side lane is very strong. I'm not sure what that was for MLXG. RNG can still team fight. And if they can get the front to back going with a 3-item Tristana, maybe they get to 4, then things actually are still possible for them. And I'm getting some hints of deja vu potentially, with bottom lane being a big point to focus.
I think a big point for RNG as well is going to be when Let Me picks up his Trinity Force, because now he's on 2 tank items. Trinity Force is coming up next.
Do you think it'll be a Trinity Force?
It's got a Sheen unless he goes towards Iceborne Gauntlet. Either way, I still think that's a big item pickup coming out for Let Me. When his Sheen is complete, that's going to provide even more consistent damage coming out from RNG, which currently only Xiaohu and Abel provide.
Yeah, Trinity Force is...
Xiaohu's in small amounts.
Yeah, you're right. Trinity Force is totally viable to actually provide extra damage. It's a duelist item, so if your goal is to, say, kill the Kaiser, then yeah, I mean, it's a possible item. But at the same time, Iceborne Gauntlet giving that utility. There's XX.
Yeah, going towards XX. Zeke's Harbinger gets popped there. It's Abel dashes in. He's going to get locked down by the taunt. Forced to cleanse. Used it a little bit later. Chocho trying to go to the back lines. Knocked back and away by Abel. Big taunt! Korn able to lock down too. MLXG forced away as Abel has already been taken down. Knocked into his passive once again. And Abel just too big for his shoes at the moment. Jumping into that fight where he should not have. Jumping straight on top of Moyu. He's going to get knocked out of his Guardian Angel, but he's away from turret range. So we do have a fight on 2 fronts. But TOP come out on top.
Yeah, Let Me winning the duel though may save the game at the very least. Teleport's coming in towards the top side, however. Moyu wants to make the play for the inhib at the very least right now.
They've got it.
You've got Abel dead for 20, MLXG dead for 25, and Let Me with no ultimate. I wonder if TOP will keep going. It looks like they're going to try.
It's 15 seconds on Abel to come back up. Cat's going to go in for the first fight. Let Me's going to get locked down, forced to flash away very early on. But they've already cleared all the minions. So these are fortified turrets that TOP are fighting against. They do disengage. They do back off. RNG live to fight another day. But very good push coming out from TOP.
And the teleport expended by Moyu. It makes you wonder if they wanted to go towards the Baron, perhaps after, not push towards the end, but still an inhib falls. And that's what matters the most. They have broken the base. The gold lead has not been brought back by RNG winning a team fight as it accelerated for TOP up to 10,000. Korn coming up with a big play now, 4-0 and 6 on the Galio. Like you mentioned, though, it is a bit too much for Abel. Jumping forwards, if we see that replay, you'll know that it's a mistake from the second he presses W.
It was just a hypey play coming out from Abel as well. If nobody else was there, it would have been a good move because he had the Zeke's ultimate coming out from Gragas. He had all the damage in the world to try and take down XX, whose passive was popped. His Aftershock had worn off. It was a great time for Abel to go forward. But being locked down.
Baron's been started.
And even after being locked down, cleansing late, flashing away late, taking way too much damage to start means he couldn't follow up on the back half of the fight. But you're right, Baron has been started.
That was a Sejuani ultimate, just missed as well over the wall.
Yep, 4,000 hit points.
Area.
RNG have stolen it once. They can try and go for another steal. MLXG is waiting for this fight. Xiaohu might be locked down here, taking some damage, but he's okay.
That's good from TOP. They choose not to press forwards into places where RNG have the vision controlled. They don't want to go forwards into a Malphite. They don't want to risk those team fights. Baron is the primary focus.
Yeah, it's also look at the waves. Bottom lane's pushing in for the side of TOP. Top lane's pushing in. In fact, they've got Abel on the top side of the map, so no 80 carry for RNG just yet. He's going to try and collapse. MLXG gets jumped on. Kidnap going to try and bring 2 back, but the jungler is already dead. 4 on 5 at the moment. Cat has retained it. Chocho taking a lot of damage. Abel going to try and jump in Korn. Looking for the taunt. Doesn't get it. Great stopwatch coming out from Abel. Trying to disengage. Knocks one back. Rocket jumps away. He is still alive for now. But Chocho does get taken down. TOP lose the 80 carry. And that's an abundance of damage being taken away from TOP's comp.
Yeah, Abel actually played that one very well, but it was just to survive. It wasn't to win in the fight. Xiaohu now well out of position. He's going to try his hardest to survive, but it's really just about buying all the time you can.
Yeah, we've got Galio jumping as well. Xiaohu's going to try and fight his way out of this, but it's not going to be enough. Guardian Angel gets popped. does buy time for RNG, but that's going to be a very long death timer coming out for Xiaohu. 1 minute total. And TOP are in position to siege Baron once again.
They may be able to seize this game on top of the Baron if they secure this one. Inhib gone, MLXG, he's going to maybe sprint forwards, but he knows he can't get there at all, and it's not safe. He's just going to defend the top lane. RNG concede the Baron. TOP well in the driver's seat.
Certainly are. Baron is going to go the way of TOP. They're over 10,000 gold ahead of RNG, and we are in the late game, guys.
Definitely are. You'll get to see this fight again, MLXG. The one who's caught out of position initially by the Camille, they've made a conscious choice here, TOP. They want the engage, they don't want the Baron, they don't want the objective just yet. Abel, of course, finds Xiaohu, and Xiaohu is able to take him down, something that may delay the Baron. But Xiaohu can't get back over the wall, and Abel is just left to run away. And from this position, he was caught out, and he had to run for his life, and eventually goes down.
That's pretty much all she wrote. RNG tried and tried to defend that Baron multiple times. TOP making the right call almost every single time. Even when they lost the first Baron that was stolen away by Ming, it was still the right call. They tried to force it, they tried to force a fight, and they won the fight afterwards. 4-0 at that as well in the first Baron fight. So we're taking a look at the items from the side of RNG. How do they fight back against Baron buff? How do they fight back 12,000 gold behind?
Can they is the question. Not so much how do they find the opportunity, but can they even do that?
Can they, Rusty?
When TOP are well equipped to take them on right now. They've got extra damage sources. Every individual that is tanky can deal damage because they're ahead.
Well, Abel sold his stopwatch and picked up the most inefficient item on a carry at the moment. Last Whisper's been picked up by Abel, not upgraded, still sitting on his Zeal as well.
Mid lane's the place that they're looking. Moyu in the side lane. I don't think Let Me can stop him at all if he doesn't want to expend the ulti.
Oh, TOP jumping in, gonna be able to lock down Ming. Chol dash in the back lines. They kill the support right away. Abel forced to use his own cleanse. Kiting away, but he does no damage to the front line of XX. Moyu gonna take some damage, knocked away. XX does charge away, locks down MLXG. Meanwhile, TOP take down one in here, but a second one's gonna fall as well. All three have been broken. RNG push back towards their base.
They're going for
5 members strong. TOP gonna go in. Moyu jumping into the first fight here. Abel trying to kite away from this one, can take it down! RNG lose their 80 carry. Everyone else is slowly dropping as well. TOP, they've come out to play. They tie up the series, 1-1.
And we absolutely have a series on our hands at that. TOP, the advantage of game one, they ultimately went down, but they win the second. Could have been 2-0, but now it's 1-1. In this series, maybe that was enough to bring out Uzi. Maybe it was enough to bring out the god himself. RNG have him waiting in the wings, and TOP have said, come and get me.
But even then, even when we say, you know, this is the time to bring out Uzi, was that the problem on the map here? Game one, sure, you might be able to argue that Abel was a significant problem. 40 CS behind, a lot of the plays rotated around bottom lane, moving around the map. But in this match, TOP just targeted the top side of the map. That's the part of the map that fell so early on.
It's not a case of Abel being the problems per se, more that Uzi could be the solution for RNG because they're confident and they're comfortable around him. This was a lot better from TOP though overall. You saw the Sejuani come in. They looked a lot better with that. You also saw Moyu get to play carries in that top lane. Yes. And he had a pop-off game because the team worked around him. Galio for Korn, something that was banned in game number one, now available for him, and you can see why it was banned.
XX finding some confidence as well. He did not have a very good Camille game in the last map against RNG, and surprise coming out from TOP as well. In their last series, when they played against Suning to get to this, it almost looked like Suning were going to sweep them. Yeah. TOP had to pull it back in that best of 5, and it was close till the final game. But to break down that second map and to bring us into the next, let's send it back to the analyst desk.
Thank you, Fish. And here we are, 1-1. And I feel like I may have to give this over to Mr. 3-0 to start off this discussion. So what went wrong, Raz? Why didn't we get the 2-0 here for RNG?
A lot of it came down to the top side of the map really being broken open. Usually if there is a team going and challenging Let Me side of the map, he's feeling comfortable because in the next play he can go bottom lane. There was no response in that. In fact, when Zach went bottom side of the map, the gank fizzled when he went on towards Zach. And that's really where the question lied, is that Chocho played it incredibly safe alongside Cat, and they got out of the laning phase unscathed in both side lanes.
Yes, he did. I mean, it was a lot of ganks that went on towards the top lane to start off, and it actually looked good in the first gank because nothing happened, and then he got the counter gank on top lane. It's like, okay, great. We get a free pass through the early game when you've got a Malphite up top lane. This should be going well, but it was repeated dives, repeated ganks that happened. They just kind of brute forced open the game.
Yeah, and the big thing here is that I felt like Lemmy actually underperformed quite heavily onto the matchup into the top side. You can see usually when this matchup happens, the Malphite takes aggressively and dying. He maxes the attack speed slow, but this time around he wanted to play more aggressive. He took the Comet, actually skilled into the Q early on as well. But what happened there was XX was actually able to flip the matchup with his presence in the top lane. So the poke was no longer there, and Camille actually had wave control over that matchup. So even though the first game did not work out for TOP, they actually got the push and they changed the dynamics of the matchup where they could consistently just shove Malphite in. And I think that was a big misstep coming out from RNG, not really getting what they needed out of the counter matchup. Yeah. And on top of that, I just feel like they lacked a in-game strategy overall. The ganks were very diffused. They went top lane, they went bot lane. They had no successful play. The only gank they got throughout the early series in these two games was actually just in that one gank into the top side. So there's not enough early action for RNG to then move their entire composition later towards the game.
And it was interesting, right? Because we looked at this composition. It's like, once again, Korn is not picking up a major carry in the mid lane. He's actually supporting the bottom lane of Chocho. And it's just like, really, in game 2, that's where you want to put your eggs right now. You want to give it over to Chocho and see if he can scale. Well, that did happen because of those reasons, because it wasn't action happening in the game from RNG.
And this is an incredibly defensive composition in the sense that if there was any point of pressure coming out of RNG, post 6 that is, towards the bottom side of the map, the ability of Camille Galio was just a lot of threat there. So I felt the fact that Moyu was able to break open the map 13 minutes of the game, top lane goes down and they can look towards swapping lanes, that meant a lot because the Malphite was not going to be able to impact the opposite side of the lane. He actually was consistently pressing his own matchup, as you were mentioning. And then they wouldn't be able to look for a dive in the opposite side of the match because while the Tristana was having some issues, the issue is also if Zac goes in, he gets nullified by the Galio ultimate. So compositionally, it made a lot of sense for TOP to pick this in the sense that you allow Moyu to get the early lead, you give him the opening post 15, and then there's no way for RNG to find an opposite access.
And it's just the fact that TOP were able to execute on this, right? Because we've already seen the TOP coming out of their previous preparation in the round 1 matchup. That did not work, and they tried it very hard in game 1 and game 2. Went back to what worked in regular season, but then right here, we don't see carries. We see basically a team composition fit to try and take apart RNG, and they execute well on it.
You know what this composition reminds me of?
What's that?
It's the LCK anti-Chinese comp played at Asian games. They have double global compositions to basically defend any aggression you're going at you. And you have to remember, these are divers themselves as well. So they work in a basically double-edged sword where you can punish, and then you have already very strong protection against what RNG is most likely to do, which is the global collapse, basically.
And I think the amount of engage that they had in terms of their options around the Baron buff really secured it for them because the Baron dance that they had for a very long time was a very strong access for them. So red side jungle fights that were coming through, very hard to fight in corridors around what TOP had access to. It was just unfortunate because, you know, TOP, when it comes to their Baron steal stack, it's just unfortunate that they actually lose a lot of Barons consistently. This was just incredibly unlucky on the side of XX, just pointing out the fact that he did go to like 800 HP. He goes for the smite, but nothing comes down on towards the Baron because he actually smites the Zac passive there.
Yeah, the blob. Yep.
So that is super impactful because they've been playing around this for quite some time in the sense that, sir, 4 minutes for it, they finally look for the Baron fight. It doesn't, at least the buff itself doesn't go their way, so they actually have to commit to the fight. So they look for the next Baron buff, and that's when they're able to nail down the game. So usually TOP has faster games. It would have been a much faster game in this sense if they were able to net the first Baron buff. So it's just the difference between what was a longer series or was a longer game and would have been, I would say, a 30-minute game that they completed.
And despite the smite, XX will still get our MVP in this one. And, I mean, yeah, I do agree with you. From that point, it was just like we looked at each other and it's like, is this the point where RNG mount a comeback, right? Like the fact that, yes, they lost the team fight, but they managed to stall the Baron. It gives them another shot, gives them another 5, 6, 7 minutes to actually mount something. But it didn't really happen. You saw the goal graph. It was just from mid-game all the way to the late game. It was just one smooth sail coming out from TOP.
First 10 minutes for XX was just purely in the top side of the map. I think the control that he had there, a lot of control wars that he was able to place to allows adjacent lanes, just free laning phase, is great. The pressure he put top lane too, because to your point, Comet being picked up by Malphite, he had control until he lost 60% of HP in that first game.
Yeah, pretty
so
much.
I thought XX initial pressure top lane to allow Moyu to be a lot more free in the game was a definite thumbs up.
The big thing for RNG going forward is that they really need to have a laning phase strategy. I think what you've seen with Karsa, where actually where they are successful, is that they go super hard on a single lane. Most of the times it is bot lane. They're not doing that with Abel right now, but at least I would have expected them to to invest more heavily into the mid side. They can't really go into this with a scaling composition with the Kaisa and just go like, we're not going to play any conflicts early on. That's not what's going to happen. I don't think that's a winning strategy for them. So whether they swap their players in or not, I think they're going to play a similar strategy, but they need a stronger laning phase.
Well, that's the question, right? It's just like, will they swap people? And we're about to find out. We are going to take a short break and see what RNG do moving into game number 3.
想要在这里生存下去，必须倾尽所有。
就和对标上的凤凰一样，浴火重生承载着我们舰队时的愿望。这团火焰要继续燃烧下去。
我们不会为遗憾找借口，不管走到哪一步，那就是自己的实力体现。这回我相信苏宁可以一飞冲天。
几个月前，谁能想到我们会站在这里？几天之后，谁又知道我们将走得多远？
如果我们能杀出重围，请不要诧异。
Hello and welcome to the Summer Flames. Don't know if you could hear me there for a second. I'm Paul. This is Clement. I've got Raz alongside me coming in for this one. And see the King behind me as well. Guess the other side. There you go. We'll be getting into this much very shortly. How are you doing, guys?
Doing well. I mean, we just came off of, remember, we're in a gauntlet of playoff runs. So we already had the 2 last sets for round 1s. And then, funny enough, you know, TOP. Feeling pretty tired already. 2 days before this, they had to go up against their previous opponent, Suning Gaming, and now they have to go up against RNG.
Yeah, they did indeed. However, they put on a very good showing for themselves, and I'm specifically looking to the man in mid lane as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket and see how we're doing so far, because we've got the first round completed now. We're now moving into our quarterfinals of playoffs, so we'll see how the teams are shaping up. You can see that, as we said, round 1 complete, and now we've got RNG and TOP today.
And in round 1, both times the higher seed did manage to claw their way throughout the bracket. Now here is a big challenge for TOP, because if they want to get into the regional qualifiers, they do have to take out RNG today. They will be tied if they both drop out on this bracket with JD Gaming, but then it comes down to net wins, and they're very far behind JD Gaming. It is a must-win scenario for TOP.
It's a tough task, 100%. And remember, RNG would be watching all 4 of the games that Suning had played versus TOP, so they are primed and ready for today's matches.
Yes, they are, and already spoiled it, but it is RNG versus TOP today. They will have to go on to face Rogue Warriors as well, the winner of today as well. So no small task moving on for the rest of the tournament. But when we take a look at these 2 teams, you know, it's TOP versus essentially the golden age of RNG right now. There doesn't seem to be like anything that they can't win. Even 3 of their members go over to Asian Games and they just take that one too.
Yeah, so immediately we go towards MSI performance, Rift Rivals performance, Asian Games, where a good portion of the team did go, as you had mentioned, but also their coaching staff. So for them, there was so much confidence of how they were running this split that they could just represent China. So for this squad coming in today, the expectation is not only that they can get to the finals, because they've done that 5 times in a row. RNG have been rolling through this one consistently. So for this team this year, everyone globally is expecting the best of them, so they have to take the first step.
And I think it's really important to see how they're actually doing in their own domestic league. RNG, the way they've revolutionized the game is that there is no other team that we've seen that has such precise teamfight control. Remember back in MSI, they said if they went up against Kingzone, Kesman was saying they had a 90% chance if it went down to a late game teamfight. So I really want to get the graphics up and really talk about RNG and how they're doing so far in this split. I think the first thing you have to notice is that they're actually a very slow team. We have a lot of teams that you know, when people think about a Chinese team, they think Chinese aggression, they think fast-paced, but RNG are actually one of the slowest teams. They're the least bloodiest team, and they do like to play 1-3-1 and stretch it out to the late game. Our second point will tell you why. King's Tribute. Uzi is the most gold-intensive player, not only in the LPL, but in the entire world. 25.6% of the gold on his team does go to him. They are banking very heavily on him to get to that late game on a 3-item Kai'Sa, on a 3-item Xayah, and close the game out for them. And the final point we have is that in those team fights, they're so good at getting the precise coordination down. Remember MSI, game 4, it did go down to them. One combo team fight, they were able to take it entirely away. Those crucial picks that give them initiation, like the Ornn and the Rakan, are the big things we have to look for.
And to just echo that point about the resources and RNG going solely in towards their carry, as you can see Letme's face is wild and out there, you're right about Uzi. And for Uzi, a lot of it comes down to the confidence once the resources are put into him, but it's also surprisingly enough Xiaohu. So for damage percentage for this team, just compared to their competition throughout the regular season, it is so focused on both Xiaohu and Uzi that if either of them dies in the team fight, sure, they still end up winning it just on the skill alone, but that's when they're the most challenged. So I wonder what we're going to be seeing out of TOP. I know that TOP as a squad, they look to either dive an AD carry threat or they just go for picks. I think that's very effective in terms of just strategy-wise, but just talking about it, RNG feels so confident about their playstyle that I'm surprised they're changing anything at all.
Yeah, definitely not going to change. But I also think that could be an obstacle going against TOP because, like we said, TOP in the pre-20 minutes, they're the best team at setting up team fights. They have the highest win rate in that time period. So if RNG play things a little bit too slow, they could find themselves in a very mucky situation where TOP had the early game comp.
Yeah, is that, and they also have their playmakers as well. And I'm, of course, looking to the mid lane specifically with Korn, because Korn, in his matchup coming into the quarterfinals, I mean, he was the guy. If you wanted something to happen, it's going to be coming out of Korn. So many playmakers coming out of him. You think of the Yasuo, the Aurelia that we saw the other day as well, including LeBlanc. This guy will make the plays happen. And what did you say, Clement? It's like contain Korn. Yep. And what didn't happen? Yeah. They didn't contain Korn, and then Korn was all over the map, and he just pretty much killed everybody before the game got rolling.
They couldn't handle him. Even in the games in which TOP had lost versus Suning Gaming, he was the most consistent player in the series. And then the regular season, the reason why they stayed to Korn instead of switching between him and Goong was simply because Korn was performing. Not only was he up to par with his past early game focus, but also just incredibly consistent around the late game. And so here you see him, 2014, at that world stage in the finals, and he was alongside Uzi. So this set means so much to him because not only had he not been in an LPL playoffs run since 2014 summer, but that 2014 summer is something that he will think about so often. And then going up against Uzi today, up against RNG, is a monumental task for him. He's playing up to stuff, and I want to see how he does today.
I think for him, it's about proving that the collapse of RNG after Uzi left the team was not completely on himself, that he can play up and join the likes of RNG in terms of their game strength. And he's been doing it so well on those Assassins. The Aurelia we saw, the 6.3 KDA coming out from him. And he actually did very well against Xiaohu in their match against RNG. Even though that was a 0-2 series, they still could not keep Korn down in the mid lane on his Assassins.
This is by far the best split that he's played professionally throughout his career, because even on that world stage, a lot of people will look at that not globally but just in the domestic region as well in China and will say, well, he didn't deserve it. It was Uzi carrying the entire lineup and then Insec having his plays over here or there on the side. Yeah. But then so for him to come off that stage and then really have that redemption arc, even going into the LSPL and then changing his name to Miss, so really got that Rocky montage going. He comes back on that stage, goes on to TOP, and so now you're seeing that surge in his career, which is a very late part of his career. So for him, all of it comes down to today.
Yeah, reclaims his name and will be hopefully taking some names today as well. But then we take a look at the RNG roster for Game 1, and it's not what you would expect. You know, because we're talking so much about Uzi, and it's just like, look at this guy, he's the king right now. It's not even Uzi starting. It's Abel down in the bottom lane.
And that has to be such a bummer for Korn. I really feel like it's his moment where it really raises his morale, and he goes like, Uzi, do not hide behind your teammates. Come out and face me. It's going to be that moment where he is going to be looking for Game 2 and Game 3. But I want to talk a little bit about why they are starting Abel. We are moving into a 7-man Worlds roster, and Uzi has been having recurring back injuries, hand injuries. I think it's a wise choice to give the new guy a little bit of playoff experience. He has played 0 games in the playoffs so far, but has done really well in the regular summer split. So a great time to reward him and get him under some high-pressure games.
That being said, remember, it took some time for them to bring out Uzi during the regular season. And the reasoning behind that is, okay, you're going to save him, hide him a little bit. Bring him out when it's ready. Bring him out when it matters the most, and playoff time is what matters the most. So when you come to the final playoff time, and for him to be not starting out, honestly, this is when it feels like they're getting a little bit too confident. This is when you're coming out and saying that, sure, it's a best of 5, let's try new things out. This is not when you should be doing that. Remember, RNG, they have the points from Spring Split, but they should not be riding on that because Rogue Warriors have a lot of points. Invictus Gaming could take the split, and there's a very real possibility if they lose this series that they drop down into the gauntlet run. Yep. And so for me, this seems like a very risky play.
Yeah, very, very important stuff for them. But then we have to take a look at how they're actually going to win this game. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at the starting rosters. It's Moyo in the top lane, XX in the jungle, Korn in the mid, with Chocho and Cat in the bottom. So no Lai starting today, so probably not going to be an Urgot blind pick.
Yeah, so one thing we're going to be looking towards is Moyo and XX getting MVP performances in the last series, and Korn riding it out. So for TOP, they're going to be playing on the top side of the map. That's been more consistent for them.
On the opposite side, it will be Zatai starting in the top lane with MLXG in the jungle, Xiaohu in the mid lane, Abel in AD carry, and Ming alongside him.
Definitely more of an experimental roster coming out from RNG. These are not the main starting players that they have in the top lane, in the jungle, or at the ADC position. So a bit of a new flavor coming out from them, probably trying to train their B unit.
That being said, training out veterans feels like a bit too much. I'll say this in the sense that MLXG has so much experience. Easily, is a gold medalist because they brought him to Asian Games as well. Zatai was in Rift Rivals. They came in Rift Rivals still. So if we're talking about just outright experience, RNG had that over TOP tenfold. 4 of the players of TOP don't have any LPL playoff experience. It's only Korn that has that. So for TOP, we're talking about his outright experience. RNG is going to trump them in every way, shape, or form. It has to come as a challenge to TOP to be able to rise to the occasion.
Now, how do they actually play out this game? Are they still going to be playing towards the bottom side? Are you then looking towards the jungle, the top lane? Because we have many different factors coming into this game.
I think for TOP, you definitely have to take it early to RNG, play on their tendencies to go for the late game. And one thing I really like is playing mages in the bot lane for Chocho. Now, Chocho in the interview said, why do I play mages? Because I don't die in lane and I'm useful in team fights compared to ADC. If they can shore up their bot lane weakness, which has traditionally been tremendous against RNG, then they have a stable footing to then focus on the top and mid.
And there's one strategic aspect here for RNG, because even, taking out Uzi, you'd think that's kind of crazy. Abel does play early game AD carries. Draven comes to mind. And if you're looking at this series and you're looking down the barrel of Chocho and saying, wait a minute, Chocho, you have the worst stats when you're comparing to the AD carries of the LPL. Let's see if I can pick Draven and just stomp the laning phase. So if I'm looking to RNG, that's one option here. If that fails, then very easily it's a best of 5 and they can just ship Uzi back in. It's not a Cody Sun situation for RNG. He's not back at home. He's still in the RNG venue. So what I'm expecting out of RNG is for them in a Game 2 situation, if it does not work out to plan, they bring Uzi back in.
Now, is that the expectation heading into Game 1 that is actually TOP favored with this, quote-unquote sub-roster coming in?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. The last time they also played with Abel, and it was a 0-2 experience. But I want to focus a little bit on why they bring MLXG. There is one stat that MLXG does better than Karsa, and that is camp the mid lane. 44% of his ganks go towards the mid, and I think that's an adaptation to keep Cool down. They saw what happened in the previous set. They know Cool can go off. He has gone off. So getting those two, the more familiar duo, into the mid lane, I think is going to be the core strategy and going to be the core focus for RNG in this game 1 with Abel.
Yeah, so being able to go up against TOP and take Korn down is going to be really monumental. When I'm going to look at this, because I already talked about taking down the bottom lane with Abel. That's a possibility where they're just trying to take the early laning phase. And you're right about that MLXG. He's a lot more brute force than Karsa is. Karsa is going to be like, Raptor Camp, I'll meet you. I've timed it, my friend. So he's the type of guy to just be a lot more mathematical in his approach and a lot more efficient, and he won't outright just go for lane ganks, other than if he's trying to give Uzi a little bit of love and attention. MLXG, fight. Look for your red buff, but he won't go for the red buff, he'll go for your face. He'll go for the mid lane ganks quite frequently, go for the top lane ganks, maybe help out Zatai. So I wonder if this is RNG just saying, we're testing you out in game 1, we're just going to try and force it in the first 10 minutes and see what we can do.
Now, do you guys think that RNG are still trying to hide what they're fully capable of? Because I know that we were casting the JD match, and I know that they only showed one strategy, and they did it over and over and over again, and hey, they still managed to win the series. Here today, they're moving in different people off of their bench now and looking towards maybe different tactics. Are they still trying to hide moving into semi-finals? Because they have a long way to go. They've got to go through Rogue Wars, then them got to go potentially to the finals as well.
All I'm going to say is this is definitely not their strongest roster. They're definitely testing things out, and when things get heated, they will bring Uzi back onto the bench. You should not expect them to go through with this the entire set.
And we know RNG to be a team that has an expansive strategic pool during the regular season. Hell, they brought both MLXG and Carson in the same game to buff this man's graves up. So 100%, 1,000% I believe that there are strategies that they're holding tight. And going into the next series, if they take this one, that Rogue Warriors have to have in the back of the mind that they still have strategies that they haven't seen yet. Because RNG is working with a lot here, knowing exactly what TOP's been showing in the last games, especially during the regular season. And then if they're able to take this series, they're going to be looking to take the throne once again.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Because TOP got pushed to the limit, and we pretty much saw everything. It's just like, if you're not showing everything that you potentially have going to a final game in this series, then what are you doing at this point? We've just got time for a quick prediction. So, Clement, who's it going to be?
I'm going to go with 3-1 RNG. I feel like there's a good chance that TOP can take game 1, but the King's going to come back to finish out the series.
And Raz?
I'll say 3-0 RNG. I had faith 10 minutes ago, but then you start thinking about the lanes, and you're like, I just don't know. TOP has to prove it to me.
All right, well, we'll see if that's going to be the case.
I switched
you didn't even tell our production.
That's only what you said before. All right, I'm going to get this guy out of here. We're going to send it over to the casters to get us into game.
What's up, guys? It's me, your resident KitKat analyst here, as well as the resident Yerkson cosplayer of China, Zach Rusty Pie, bringing you today's matches between TOP as well as RNG. And nothing's changed, Rusty. I've been gone from the LPL for some time, but come back, look at the analyst S, and Raz has flip-flopped once again.
Yeah, I mean, those things will always stay the same. Now, we are, of course, in Champ Select for game number 1. It's the quarterfinals, Fish. Keep that in mind, between TOP and RNG, and we're already racing through the bans and the picks so far, so feel free to catch us up as we've gone through.
Yeah, because we have Akali, Alistar, as well as Swain being banned out by RNG. Aatrox, Kai'Sa, and Rakan taken away by TOP. They first picked Varus and followed up with Camille, as well as Tahm Kench later on in the draft. Whereas for RNG, they went for Gragas and Tristana first. And they've picked up Ryze for Xiaohu in the mid lane.
Yeah, so TOP on their side first, they've gone towards a lot of bot lane utility and a lot of mobility through that lane as well. The Varus and the Tahm Kench being able to get around the map, something that Chol and Cat are very good at doing. Of course, also controlling their lane is something that they have a little thing towards themselves. Now, Tristana was the response to the Varus on the opposing side here from RNG. That's not something that wins lane very well unless your support is like hyper aggressive, and I think of an Alistar, but they banned that, so they don't even have that as an option for themselves. And I'm curious to see where they go down in that bottom lane, and if in some crazy world that Gragas is already an early flex down in the support role.
Well, support's already being targeted by TOP. Shen's being taken away as the first ban of the second ban phase. Galio being banned out here by RNG. It's still patch 8.16. So the small nerfs that have gone Varus's way in 8.17 have not applied just yet. So a little bit of saving grace for Chol in that bottom lane. If they do see the aggressive support, he'll have the extra health to deal with some of the damage.
And a lot of mid lane focus in the second ban phase from RNG, getting rid of the LeBlanc and the Galio, taking things from Korn, and Urgot is the other one that we'll talk about in a second. Now, a lot of this mid lane focus against Korn. Not only is it Korn against his former team, or his former organization, I should say, Uzi not playing this time around, he's been playing out of his mind. You know, one big champion that still stands out to me is the Aurelia, but with a very early rotation of the Ryze and the banning of LeBlanc and Galio, they are trying to limit his options. They are trying to force him into something that may not be ideal. And when you look at the composition of TOP, they need a bit of magic damage still.
Yep, Aurelia kind of fell off recently, but has rose in patch 8.16, has been a popular pick once again. Still up for grabs if either team wants to pick it up, especially if Korn wants to try and take it to the mid lane, but we haven't seen what they're going to pick just yet. Xin Zhao's locked in for MLXG in the jungle. And we've got Narb as well as Kennen being hovered here by TOP. But they do go for Nar eventually, being locked in as the top lane pick for TOP. Moyu will be picking that one up. Now left to see what the final pick for TOP is going to be. Hovering over a few picks.
I mean, Orianna would be a very good pick for them here if they want to lock this one in. As far as I'm concerned, Orianna rounds out their team composition by having the Camille available. So the composition looked pretty clean from them, honestly, overall. Got some hard engage available. They can follow that through with some complementary engage, let's say, of the Orianna.
Yes, the Korn doesn't go towards that Bruiser. Instead, as you mentioned, going towards a mage first to duel with Ryze in the mid lane. Final pick for RNG is going to be the support unless they flex Gragas into the bottom lane. So we could still see that aggressive support. We could see it, a jungler being picked up for MSG instead. Oh, sorry, Xinjiao being picked up as the jungler means that Irelia does get picked up, and it is Gragas as the support in the bottom lane.
Yeah, it confirms the Gragas going into the support role, but what it doesn't do is say whether Ryze or Irelia will be going just yet. Irelia is one of those OG counter picks to the Gnar, something that has a lot of aggression in that lane, and something that we said after the Irelia rework was actually a better counter to the mini Gnar. When you actually put the Ryze potentially in that top lane, however, Ryze still does well. So honestly, for RNG, their top lane draft is just top percent. They're going to have to pick themselves into what is the better mid lane matchup and what is better in the 2v2 with the jungler. Xiaohu is a god tier Ryze, so that's the matchup they've chosen.
On top of that, for RNG, they've already shown in the past that this is a team that can flex their top lane and mid lane players. Xiaohu can go into the top lane, he can play top side of the map if he wants to. Tai played pretty much half a split as the mid lane player for RNG.
Yeah, he did. And Xiaohu spent a lot of that playing the bottom lane as well. So they're a flexible side, but this time, of course, they've got 3 different substitute players in as the starting roster. With this roster in place, they should be much more of a conventional front-to-back type of team, trying to work around Abel on the Tristana, but they didn't build a protect the Tristana, one carry composition. They built a multitude of carries in a multitude of areas, and if one of them snowballs, it could be dangerous. But for me, the risk is that one of them gets snowballed against them. Playing strong side and weak side is the big question mark I have here for RNG, and if they are capable of doing it.
It's almost a tragedy that Abel is playing on the same roster as Zuzi, because Abel's split for the entirety of 2018 has been fantastic in every single game that he's played, whether it be the LPL or the Marcia Cup or any other tournaments. Abel has looked fantastic. Now you combo that with the fact that going into international events recently, you can only bring 6 players. I know there are talks about expanding that into 7 potentially in the future. We'll have to see if that actually happens for international events, but even then, you're still taking Kasi, you're still taking Tatai or Let Me. So it's such a difficult prospect for him. Abel's having such a great split, but he is in the shadows.
He's behind the best player in the world. Best AD carry, I should say, in the world for certain. So when you look at this, it's not an easy thing for Abel, but this is actually a very good opportunity for him. If you throw all of that to the side, Abel now gets to come into playoffs and prove himself against some of the best. He's going to be against Cho and Cat, and this is his opportunity to stand in the spotlight and say he has what it takes on the main stage.
For game 1 at least, TRP will be trying to upset the giants of RNG, so let's get onto the map, or onto the Rift, for game 1 of this best of 5 series. Of course, there's an LGD chant at the very end there, but there you can hear the RNG chant at their home stadium in Beijing. Whereas TOP, a couple of fans have already made the trip down to support their squad heading into this big battle against RNG. And although they are the Davids to this Goliath fight, Rusty, TOP are a big organization. It's the biggest sporting brand in China that's, taking hold of this team, and they've made a really good run in Split 2, or Summer Split of the LPL.
They went from a 3-16 Spring Split Fish to managing to finish 3rd in their conference to making the quarterfinals as well, winning that first round of playoffs against Sinning Gaming. It was 3-2, and they looked very shaky at the start, so that's the thing you have to look at here for TOP specifically. Can they start game 1 with form? Because they are against the weaker iteration of the RNG roster comparatively to the rest of the subs that is waiting in the wings. TOP, this is their game to win.
It is. I mean, both Clement as well as Raz said that it is going to be a difficult match for TOP, even though RNG have brought in these substitutes today. It's going to be incredibly difficult. But let's see if they can take it to them, because if RNG decided they want to play with their full roster, that task for TOP just got so much more difficult. Already a very good start for TOP. However, they have the push against RNG in the bottom lane. Chocho has gone for lethal tempo on his Varus, so not opting for the Comet build that we saw very popular in 8.15.
Yeah, of course, a lot more people just going towards the on-hit build. I don't mind it. He's against the Tristana, so he will control the lane either way. If he opts into the lethality build, then he'd be choosing a mid-game type of composition. Now, they already have the Camille, they already have the Orianna, they have got mid-game strength, the 1.5, 2-item spikes that they'll have as well. And their team fighting, something that we've already mentioned through the draft phase, is going to be powerful, but it's about that early snowball. To bring it all the way back to RNG like we said before, if they can start this game with a bang, if they can get some early kills, get the snowball going, they may just be completely unstoppable when they go to the rest of the map and they carry those strengths through.
Well, RNG are going for the first play, bottom side of the map. Sinjao looking for a gank here by MLXG. Ming still waiting in Fog of War. Skragus going on top of Tom Kench first. Cat's going to get slowed down, just forces the flash out of Tom Kench, but he's perfectly fine. That's another champion that got hit by a couple of nerfs in 8.16.
But it is a really good summoner spell force. Of course, they can't go towards the Varus when a Tom Kench is there to save you. They choose to get the damage done onto the TK. Now note that he has no potions remaining, and he has no flash. So he's actually in kill range for just the 2v2 potentially. When you actually put that into perspective, then MLXG's gank, whilst it wasn't a kill, that's wildly successful.
He's making another return gank towards the bottom lane, this time going through the brushes in the lane itself. Gonna now decide to go back to base instead, so he's not going to try and go for the return gank anytime soon. But we do see that swap taking place already, Rusty. Tatai has moved into the mid lane, and Xiaohu has rotated towards top side of the map to go into the matchup against Na.
Yeah, and the observers are on the pulse as well. Again, one of the strengths that RNG have when they weren't using an AD carry. They had Zatai playing mid, they had Xiaohu playing bottom. This guy can do it all. You put him in a lane, he'll be able to make that lane work as long as he's playing a mid lane champion. And he has got the favorable matchup into the Na. We said Aurelia can do it, but they chose based off what they thought would be a bigger strength. And we said namely the 2v2 between the jungler and the mid lane.
Yep, him and Uzi have played 3 different lanes this entire split. Rotating towards top side of the map to mid lane to the bottom position of the map as well. Tatai as well, he's been playing primarily mid lane, sometimes, most of the time top side of the map, sometimes in the mid lane. Half the split he was playing as a mid laner for RNG, and occasionally in the bottom lane when they required him to. But he used to be a mid laner, so this is his second home at the moment for Tatai.
Yeah, I mean, he's a mid laner turned top laner, turned mid laner turned top laner, playing mid lane for RNG in the quarterfinals. That says it all for Zatai and what he is capable of doing with a team and the strategic diversity that he's able to provide. Now, speaking of able, down in this bottom lane on the Tristana, has gone towards the Doran Shield Star, which is pretty much standard for a lot of AD carries now with the press the attack build. And for him, you're not really looking at anything in the early game. The reason I bring him up is you're waiting a long time for that Tristana to be super painful, super relevant perhaps as well. Maybe 30-odd minutes in the game, depending on how it starts and how it snowballs, is when you'll really see him come online. And that's where you have to look at the bridging points. So how do we even get this Tristana to the late game? How do we make him super relevant? And a lot of that is the Aurelia. And putting him mid lane is a very good way to work with the Xin Zhao and snowball into a mid game. Get the Trinity Force spike, get that Tristana to late.
And on top of that, for Abel, press the attack's going to help him out in that mid lane itself. Synergizes very well with Tristana's E, make sure that that third attack really does hurt. And it's important because that's where most of Tristana's damage is going to be coming from the mid game, where she is at her weakest. But has been rising in popularity. Going to try and take it to Chocho, who's picked up Teleport in this matchup. So in a strict 2-on-2 skirmish, you'd expect Abel with the Summoner spell here, Combat Summoner spell advantage, to have a slight upper hand here.
It's only slight. Again, a lot of this is MLXG hovering in the area, so they have more...
He's been there for most of the game.
Yeah, he hasn't really left the bottom lane whatsoever, so the threat is a lot higher. And a lot of this game we mentioned was towards the junglers. Of course, we're going to take a second to look at Xiaohu first, and a lot of very flattering stats coming from the man, particularly at damage percent. And a lot of this is actually with his capabilities of playing Rise above all of that. The intangibles that aren't even seen in stats, things that he can do on this champion, make those stats even better than they may appear.
Well, summer's meant to be the split where Xiaohu gets a buff. He's been very vocal about how he doesn't like the cold. He doesn't like that during spring split, you're just coming out of winter in China. Do you think that he's had the best of summer splits? Because it doesn't feel like Xiaohu's had the best performances so far, but by no means poor.
It's hard to fault him when you think back to his highlight moments, because he seriously has a lot of crazy highlight moments for himself. Xiaohu, summer did come a little bit early, in his spring finals even. He was able to find himself, and I don't think it's about summer and spring anymore. I think it's about separation and buffs by time of year. I think he's just on or off at certain moments now, and at the moment he seems very on.
playing well for the side of RNG. As we mentioned, he's currently on the top side of the map. Did swap out his lanes to have the matchup against Moyu's Na. Moyu also starting in today's game, so we're not going to see Lies. We thought that that could be a big possibility, especially with Urgot being a big pick at the moment, as TRP get a good trade against me, just trying to stop this farm from crashing against the turret.
Yeah, pressuring the bottom lane 2v2. Now, at 7 minutes in the game, there's not a lot of damage onto that tower yet. You would hope, ideally, that a Varus could do a little bit more, but a Tristana naturally has that push with the explosive shot, so it's very hard to control that lane. And with MLXG having been down there the entire time, they haven't achieved what they wanted in just having the 2v2 pressure or control. RNG have been able to open up that area of the map, and we're hitting a point where you'd expect maybe Ming is unleashed a little bit here.
But what they haven't achieved in pressure and control, Chocho has picked up in CS. He is already 25 CS ahead of Abel. He has a level advantage as well, so he is doing well in that lane. Which you do expect from a Varus, but again, hasn't related to anything on the map. And 15 to 25 gold is 3 to 400 gold. 15 to 25 CS is 3 to 400 gold. It's not going to matter too much to Abel.
That's really tragic for Korn, actually. So the blue buff resets here. They're trying to deny it from RNG. Resetting its health means that RNG can't come in and force a potential smite, force a potential steal, and maybe force some awkwardness. They really need that on Korn. You could see that his mana bar was waning as it stood. So that's a big win from TOP, and whilst it looked bad and a bit awkward that it reset, that was actually the correct decision, because resetting it prevents RNG from getting entry to it.
MLXG is on a very aggressive jungler early on. Not saying that XX is not on this Camille, but Sinjar can be a force to be reckoned with. He's actually waiting in the mid lane at the moment, XX, to try and see if he can get a gank off towards the tie.
Level 6 Camille's entirely capable of getting this. Keep in mind that a Tiamat Aurelia also pushes now. MLXG he's on the top side of the map, and Moyu has stepped up. Now's a great time.
He's going to transform, tries to jump up towards Xiaohu, flays both them backwards. Moyu going to try and run away from this one. Xiaohu relentlessly chasing him down, but no Summoner Spells forced, just good damage coming out from RNG.
Yeah, and you'll see that the Na runs in a straight line back towards his turret. He knows that the Xin Zhao cannot follow. They're not going to use the Rise ultimate to pursue that any further as well. Xin Zhao cannot knock you back. So he does well to get out with his life, but that's the teleport not available. That was the ultimate used, and that's control of the lane that goes to Xiaohu. Now XX will be trying to trade on the opposite side of the map. Keep your eyes peeled on Ming and potentially Abel, maybe even Zatai, to see if they come over and prevent him.
XX is going to jump out of that pit. He's going to thank them very much for the leash. He's going to start on the Cloud Dragon himself, already at half health. Zatai rotates towards this objective. XX was way too low. I don't think he can join this fight. Should be a free dragon going to RNG.
He's going to try and steal.
Oh, he got it
too.
Piercing arrow to the dragon's knee. Chocho picks up the dragon after RNG took it from TOP.
Bit of cheeky redemption for TOP, and honestly, I would say nothing more. For me, if you ask me about playing League of Legends as a jungler, and it's a Cloud Dragon at 10 minutes, and you're a Camille by yourself, you probably don't want to do that objective, especially not if a single member of RNG can show up, because just Ming could have killed him. That's a big risk, and he's lucky that Chocho's able to pick that one up.
Yeah, you could see on his player cam earlier, XX was laughing when Chocho picked up the snipe onto the dragon. He was ecstatic that his teammate was able to save him from losing the dragon.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Chocho. You just, just saved me some face there. But it's been a very quiet early game between these two teams. RNG are actually behind in gold, about 700-ish gold behind TOP.
Does that worry you at all though, Fish? Because if I'm looking at the state of this game and I see it's even at 11 minutes, I feel like RNG are doing exactly what they want for themselves.
Makes me scared though.
Scaling up to late game team fights though is absolutely what they want. It's in their wheelhouse as a team, regardless of who the AD carry is. It's Abel playing. It's a Tristana at that.
That's true. As we can see, the last time that Korn played during the LPL playoffs was in 2014 summer, exactly 4 years ago, Rusty.
That was with Starhorn Royal Club.
It was.
Quite a while. It has been for Korn, and you heard a little bit about his story on the analyst test. The thing you have to remember for Korn is that he knew he wasn't good enough for the LPL. He went down with the ship of Starhorn Royal Club to the LSPL, and he said, "I will not come back until I believe I am good enough." And so now he's back. He's found himself again, and whatever that mental blocker was, it's gone, because he's found himself in playoffs.
He looks good. Korn has been looking good since he's joined TOP. And TOP have had a much better summer split than they did spring split. But I do like their composition coming into game one. If there was a composition that you could take to RNG, it would be a wombo comp. With the Na, with the Orianna, with the Varus, they have the potential to find one big team fight that wins them the game. And sometimes if you are not the favorite team going into a matchup, especially when you're going into a team like RNG, you need that little bit of like a little bit of an edge from your composition to try and pull you ahead in the later stages of the match. Yes, RNG can take it to the late game, but TOP can try and take it to them with their composition as well.
They could certainly try. If I was TOP and we had a fairly quiet early game, they just really wanted to play towards their lanes, you know, strengths and weaknesses, play safe on the top side. Moyu's trying to do that. You can see his itemization choices as well. Entirely defensive, just wants to survive through that lane. Bottom lane is the place where they're meant to be strong. Bottom lane is now the place where they're currently moving, threatening the dive. I think this is just a power play for the turret above all else, and that's what they're after because that's how they open up the map. TOP, if you get a Varus and a Tahm Kench free, you never know where they're going to be next.
Yep, that's true. So they do get the first turret in the bottom lane. Abel taking quite a bit of damage there.
That was a lot.
Moyu not afraid to step up and trade against them. Still holding on to that turret for some time. It has created a nice lead for Chocho in the bottom lane. 40 CS over Abel. Picks up the first turret gold as well, which was shared by Cat, but he's going to be pretty happy with that.
You have to remember, RNG, they swapped lanes almost in acknowledgement of where their game state was for the 2v2. They wanted to open up the map and at least match the gold that TOP were about to get crashing down with the turrets that fell. So they will trade back. They will get a turret, but it is not the first blood of the game for turrets as well, so they're going to lose a bit of extra gold. And they lost so much tempo in doing that as well, taking an entire extra wave against the TK, that it was super risky of them to stay where they did.
Yep. That was just a stop-loss strategy. They knew that there was no way they're going to make a favorable trade, so they make the trade that makes the most sense, losing the least amount of gold. Still gives TOP a nice 1,500 gold lead over RNG, 14 minutes into this very quiet match. Rift Herald is still standing. TOP can swap their AD carry support towards the top side of the map, which they have done now. RNG are going to keep Ming as well as Abel on the top side of the map as well. But TOP, you can see Ninja Tabby already picked up, Blade of the Ruin King already picked up by Chocho. Stormrazor has been complete by Abel, but Stormrazor has been hit by a couple of nerfs as well. So not looking as good recently.
Still a very good option, Stormrazor, as a first item. A guaranteed crit is always something that you can't take for granted. Champions like Jhin, of course, they relish in the fact that they get the crits there. For someone like Tristana, usually it's about entryway into killing carries, and with all the mobility and a potential assassination that you've got there as well, that'll help a lot. And Varus isn't known as a long-ranged AD, especially with the on-hit build. So there is a chance, and of course that's where you have to look at the rest of TOP's composition, because if Varus is hitting Tristana, something's gone a bit wacky. Now Camille is the person that will be diving onto Abel. I think that's actually a great opportunity there to kill him very quickly and play around that Camille composition, because there's no Galio to follow that one up. It's a shockwave, and that's not as simple to execute.
No, not at all. TOP will use this time to go and pick up Rift Herald for themselves. XX picks that one up and immediately throws it into the mid lane. So TOP are going to rotate straight away. One charge will be enough to take down that turret. 5 members strong. Mid lane out of turret is going to fall, and TOP with the power play, 2 turrets to 1.
Yeah, it was immediate as well, and I really like that from TOP. They have control of mid. The Orianna is handling Zatai on this Aurelia. See a CS lead growing between them. There's a CS lead in the bottom lane, and it even gets a second charge off onto that mid lane inner turret. Top lane's also the only place that's losing for TOP, but he's been losing with grace, you would say, Moyu.
Yep. He hasn't been dying, he hasn't been giving up kills. Moyu has been fine on the top side of the map, even when he was put into the lane against Abel, as well as Ming. He was able to trade effectively. He was able to prolong the life of his top lane outer turret. So he's been doing pretty well for himself in the top side of the map against Xiaohu, even though it was RNG that proactively made this swap coming into the game. Now we're checking in with RNG, who are going to be taking away some of their side of the jungle. Mountain Dragon's going to be coming back up, so TOP should be able to rotate and defend against those objectives. They haven't gotten too many big item power spikes for themselves here. Rusty, Luden's Echo has been picked up by Korn. Chelcho has picked up a pickaxe for himself, so he's half an item ahead of Abel for the time being. But they've picked up these gold leads. It hasn't really transitioned into anything just yet. You'd expect maybe in 2 to 3 minutes, that's when the big power spikes will start to take place for TOP.
Yeah, I mean, naturally in the LPL, and of course a lot of the world, they're actually just going to engage right now on Abel.
They follow through onto Abel. Gragas throws out the ultimate, doesn't connect, and he's dead. Abel gets executed there. First blood, going to go over to Korn.
And there's the first translation of the game. So they get the kills, they get the turrets, they snowball in mid lane as well. And the first kill goes down onto the rookie of Abel. He's taken apart. Tristana with no way out once the Camille ultimate was on. And a tragic magic timing on the jump. Yeah. Unfortunately for him, that'll be all she wrote. And then they get a dragon on top of this. TOP are playing very good League of Legends right now, and they are dismantling the sub-roster of RNG.
We can take a look at that replay once again. Abel tried everything. Jumped, it followed through. Ultimate to knock Korn back, even Ming's ultimate to try and knock him out of the Hextech ultimatum. Nothing could stop TOP from collapsing onto RNG's AD carry. That was the first blood going towards Korn against his previous organization. And it also translates to another elemental dragon for TOP. With that, TOP have picked up a 3,000 gold lead over RNG. We're just 17 minutes and 30 seconds into this match as well, and although it's been slow, this is now a sizable gold lead and a good tempo advantage that TOP have that they can work against RNG with.
I mean, frankly, this lead from TOP so far is a very promising start. You know, MLXG still aware of the red buff. A couple of the concerns that we had coming into this is, will TOP start all guns blazing? You know, will they come in at 100%? Last set we saw against Suning Gaming, they definitely were not. Suning Gaming were able to take the first 2 games of that best-of-5 series. This time around, they look on form in their first game. They are ready to go. Korn's also the recipient of that first blood on the Orianna. That is a big Orianna that can team fight. They're engaging.
They're engaging onto XX as well. He gets the hook shot and is able to disengage. He's low on hit points, and Moshi's going to flash forward, but Cat's able to save him. Only has a 4-second time to keep him alive. Spits him back out, but RNG have collapsed. Xiaohu's now in this fight as well. Irelia going to throw out her ultimate, trying to lock them all down. Cat taking some damage. RNG going to chase forward. Double kill being picked up. Korn tries to save the day, but it's 3 kills going to RNG.
RNG collapsing first. They want the plays and they get what they're after. So the kills are there. Now we're only 18 minutes and 40 seconds into the game, tragically for RNG. Positioning on the map. They're even posturing themselves towards the Baron, but not to be this time around. However, you take those kills. Finally, they've been able to stem the bleeding, slow down the advantages that their opponents are getting, and set themselves up. And it was a good start here for TOP on the attempt to disengage, but note that there's no turrets. The teleports were significantly faster from Xiaohu and from Zatai, and the teleport very late from Na. Honestly, no point in completing it at this point in the game, so he just has to back away and kind of call that one a day. RNG, they're able to pull the punch first.
They're able to do it first, which was the main thing. There was no way RNG were really taking a fight to TOP with that advantage, with that lead, unless they were able to start the fight first. Catching out XX was the first part of it. The big rotations were the next parts of those fights for RNG. They've clawed back the lead as well. It's now back to 1,500, so they halved the gold lead that TOP previously had.
And that's RNG in a nutshell. They pull the fight. They make the plays that they're after, and they do it so much faster than their opponents. The TOP were not able to react effectively, not able to react in time. And this is one of those things you could look at TOP's positioning on the map and say that's a mistake. That's always possible, but they're looking at the last remaining outer turret. So they were trying to make the play. It's just that RNG on a dime are able to switch so aggressively towards you, and they didn't expect that deep vision to even be there.
Our observers showing that Baron has now spawned 20 minutes into the match. RNG are actually looking to see if they can punish Moyu even further, but like you were pointing to earlier, Rusty, Moyu's been playing fine this entire match. Yes, he's on Na, and yes, he's into a lane against Xiaohu on Rise, which does well into this matchup, but he's not falling too far behind. He's about 30-odd CS behind. He hasn't died. But we did have some questions as to, you know, Moyu is starting for TOP. We thought that Lies could potentially come in, especially with Urgot being so popular at the moment. That could be the pick that TOP went towards, but starting with Moyu for game 1 at least.
Urgot was even banned by TOP in this first game as well, taking that from their opponents, not letting Zatai get the pick. Zatai is a big carry player, so I wonder if the decision here for TOP was that we want to go towards a team fight, more, you know, centric type of player, not go towards our Urgot Darius guy. So they picked the Na for Moyu this time around. They're going to look towards those team fights for certain. When you look at the split pushing, I don't think there's ever a world where he wins the split push regardless of who he's against. The reason I say that is RNG are actually one of the best teams in the world at doing what no other teams do. And that's not just 1-3-1-ing, but that's having a 3-2-0 lane assignment where both Zatai and Xiaohu put themselves in a side lane. And so Moyu, if there's ever a world where he feels confident and is against the Say and Aurelia at 3 items, suddenly rises there and he's dead regardless. There is no winning situation for him. He has to teleport, he has to team fight, and that's what all of TOP are after.
Well, you can see that he's got the team fighting build as well. He's not going towards the Rage Blade Knight, he's not going towards Blade of the Ruin King, not going towards the Hurricane. He's gone for Black Cleaver, and he's going for more defensive items or hybrid items between tank as well as aggressiveness for that Na. So really looking for the team fights, and that makes sense. TOP's team composition is about the wombo combo between Na, as well as Camille, Orianna, Varus, and then you have the protection coming out from